I guess it was kind of a miracle, you finding me.
Oh, no, it wasn't a miracle at all. In a way, I was following you.
Following me?
Well, it wasn't any secret to me that you were staying at the Silver Creek, seeing as how I'm your number one fan and all. Some nights, I'd just tool on down there, sit outside and look up at the light in your cabin, and I'd try to imagine what was going on in the room of the world's greatest writer.
Say that last part again? I didn't quite hear.
Don't move now. Wouldn't want it to hurt this neck. Well, the other afternoon, I was on my way home, and there you were, leaving the lodge. And I wondered why a literary genius would go for a drive when there was a big storm coming.
I didn't know it was going to be a big storm.
Well, lucky for you, I did. Lucky for me, too. Because now you're alive, and you can write more books. Oh, Paul, I've read everything of yours, but the Misery novels, I know them all by heart, Paul. All 8 of them. I love them so. I'm your number one fan.
After a serious car crash, novelist Paul Sheldon is rescued by former nurse Annie Wilkes, who claims to be his biggest fan. Annie brings him to her remote cabin to recover, where her obsession takes a dark turn when she discovers Sheldon is killing off her favorite character from his novels. As Sheldon devises plans for escape, Annie grows increasingly controlling, even violent, as she forces the author to shape his writing to suit her twisted fantasies. Welcome to another feature presentation of Midnight Double Feature, and on this episode, we'll be covering 1990's Misery, directed by Rob Reiner. What's going on, you dirty birds? Welcome back to this motherfucking Cockadoodie podcast. I'm Colin Duncan. You're listening to Midnight Double Feature, and this is a very special episode because I'm not alone on this episode. I am with my always intrepid co-host, Zoheb. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good, dude. I think you just set the record.
But
oh, fuck you. I was about to say, I think you just set the record for how quick we said the word cock on this episode, on the podcast.
how fast we said fuck as well.
Yeah.
But like two peas in a pod as we usually are, we are actually joined by a third P in this pod. Always happy to have her on. First time having her on, Jessica from LSG. How are you doing, Jess?
Oh, hi. I'm doing okay. There's been a lot of swearing already. This is unacceptable. If I was Annie Wilkes, I would not tolerate this shit, okay?
Well, I was hanging out with Stephen King before this, and the thing was he gave me this weird powder, and the weird powder really made me feel good, and it gave me a lot of energy, and I don't know exactly what it was, but I really like it. No, I just drink a lot of coffee. Yeah, right. A little bit of nose candy. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining us on this very special feature presentation covering 1990's Misery, directed by Rob Reiner, written by William Goldman, which we'll definitely get into. Fucking badass writer, based on the Stephen King novel of the same name. Before we jump into everything, guys, just a few little bit of housekeeping. If we want to tag some socials, you can find us on Twitter at MDF Pod. We're on Facebook at Midnight Double Feature, pretty simple. We're on Instagram at Midnight Double Feature. There's also a group with Facebook called The After Party. Everybody's invited. That group has been growing lately, and I'm really excited about it. I actually just posted some pictures in there today from a convention that we went to, and it was a blast. But I think that's pretty much everything. I mean, you can email us, midnightdoublefeature@gmail.com. Stop by, rate and review us on iTunes. Give us 5 stars, give us 1 star, do whatever. Just if you have any other requests or anything like that, you can always, like I said, shoot us a email at midnightdoublefeature@gmail.com, or honestly, you can just reach us on our personal pages because there's really not that much of a buffer. I'm just kidding. But guys, like I said, covering Misery, super excited to be doing this. I kind of weird that like 2 other podcasts are doing this right now. So before we get into like our opening impressions of everything, and before we get into all that, Jess, why don't you tell us about a little bit about LSG, promote the shit out of yourself.
Sure. I'm in a fight with the main host of LSG, Dean, because he did a Misery podcast when he knew I was doing one. So I'm not really thrilled about that. But yes, LSG Media, do a lot of different podcasts, cover a lot of different things. I've kind of been in semi-retirement since Game of Thrones, and I am slowly working my way back out of it. It was a long season 8. But we cover a lot of movies, started out just doing science fiction, now a little bit of everything. We've done a lot of TV shows, not really doing any that are currently on air, although there is a BSG podcast, there is an X-Files podcast, but you should check it out, LSG Media. Join the Illuminati, and you can get in like the really fun, like, you know, Facebook group with all the most inappropriate conversations.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, so that's what I do sometimes in my spare time.
Hell yeah, dude. And I'm anxiously awaiting Hawkins Report season 3. I fucking cannot wait.
It's going to come eventually. I just don't know when.
Oh, man. That's what she said. No, I can't wait for that. I love that. Actually, Hawkins Report is how I found LSG. If it were not for the Hawkins Report, I would not be a active member of the Illuminati. I would not be listening to any of their podcasts. I never would have met Zoheb, and this podcast never would have been started. So the ripple effect.
I didn't know that.
I brought you guys together. This is so sweet. You're welcome.
Yeah, I didn't know you came in through the Hawkins podcast. The Hawkins Report. Like for me, it was the science fiction film podcast, which is now archived, and you guys have like launched the new show, which is the Lost Drive-In, which is also awesome.
Yeah, that fucking sweet ass caramel voice Floyd Fry on the intro. Ooh, it's so sexy.
Fuck it,
but
love it.
But yeah. So, and this is, like I said, this is very interesting because, LSG, Lost Drive-In just covered this. I recently listened to that episode. Great episode, by the way, guys.
Ooh, I haven't listened to it. Sorry, LSG.
Neither have I.
I was the only one without the good sense to stay away, not only from LSG, but 27th Letter Productions has one of their podcasts called The Rogues Gallery. You know, their sister podcast with Hey Do You Remember and Wayne Manor Memoirs and Sunnyvale Stacks. They have a lot of great podcasts over there, but for Rogues Gallery, they just did Annie Wilkes. And it's like, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, what the fuck is going on? I was just like, what the fuck?
We thought we were so creative when we made this choice.
Yeah, we thought we were just so ahead of the curve and nobody was doing it. And I said off air, it's like, this has to be some kind of subconscious Castle Rock. And not saying anybody's doing it deliberately, but I mean, it's just so weird that like without any kind of inside information, Jessica, somehow all of us are doing this podcast. Now, so obviously I assumed my apartment was bugged. I have since burned it down and I've got a new laptop and everything. So I'm currently out on the fringes in a woman's cabin.
And us, dude. The CIA is watching us down here in Australia, dude. It's a fucking conspiracy, I'm telling you.
Well, since LSG stole our episode, we stole one of their hosts. So no, I'm just kidding.
There you go. So, see, I haven't even been on an LSG podcast in a while, so this is like for real. This is where to stick it to them, okay?
Right. Well, you're the last one from LSG to come on. We've had Matt, Dean, Josh, and so it's awesome. Now, I mean, this was all just a ruse to get to do a show with LSG. So after this episode, we're done. We're not doing it anymore. No, I'm just kidding.
Feel like Thanos with the fucking Infinity Stones. We got them all.
Check them off.
We got them all.
No, but seriously, thank you so much for coming on. I'm really, really excited to talk about this movie. Since Jess, you're the guest here, and also a huge Stephen King aficionado, and I assume you've probably read this book. I have not.
Oh, good, I have, and I'm definitely going to talk about it because that's what I do.
Hell yeah!
Fuck yeah! Hit me with your opening impressions.
Before you do, Jess. You do. I just want to put out there, I am about to get steamrolled on this fucking podcast because
you are.
my knowledge of Stephen King, any Stephen King material outside of like the big movies, I have zero fucking knowledge of. Haven't seen any Castle Rock. Haven't read this book. I'm about to get fucking destroyed. So if you hear me go quiet, that's not me leaving the podcast. I'm still here. So yeah, but no, I'm really keen to get both of you guys like fucking
Jess and I are gonna fucking Eiffel Tower your ass. Like we are fucking gonna.
I'm gonna be like posting pictures of like my Stephen King like book collection like all over your Facebook page, and you know.
Oh, dude, don't even. I have tried. I actually went out per your recommendation on LSG and got The Girl That Loved Tom Gordon. I have not read it yet.
Oh, good. I'm curious what you think. It's very interesting, I think.
I'm almost done with The Shining. I just bought Dr. Sleep when I bought The Shining as well. I think I've got the
Dr. Sleep the movie?
No, because I wanted to read the book first.
I'd like you to read both books first and then get back to me on the movie because there's a lot of stuff that's very interesting between like the different versions of The Shining, the Kubrick and the King, and anyway, I know that this podcast is not about Dr. Sleep, but I'd like to talk to you about it when you're done.
Can we make it about Dr. Sleep? Because I fucking love that movie. I watched it a couple days ago.
Zoheb's like, can I be relevant? Like, can I please get in? No,
why am I here? Why am I here?
Because I heard Mike Flanagan, who did Haunting a Hill House, which was great. He was trying to stay neutral and true to both of those. And I was like, dude, that's a hard line, man. That's a hard line to, that's a hard road to toe. It's like that's going to be tricky for him to do. And I'm very curious if he did it well.
The choices that he made were very interesting, and I actually liked it. So I'm very curious what you think when you get to that point.
Awesome. So, I'm definitely down to check it out. I need to finish reading The Shining, and I've got fucking The First Gunslinger. I've got 11/22/63, The Dark Half. Like I've got
11/22/63 is fantastic.
Dude, I went to a used bookstore here and we traded in a bunch of stuff, got $100 in store credit. And my girlfriend and I split it. I had like $60 worth of fucking Stephen King, like novels walking out of there.
I support that.
But yeah, hit us with your opening impressions of this, drop some knowledge on us from the novel and shit. And hit us.
Okay. So I think this is a fantastic movie that I think holds up super well, like over time. Like this movie was great. I didn't see it in 1990. I was like 4 when it came out. But I saw it when I was probably too young to be watching such a movie because I started reading Stephen King books when I was far too young to read Stephen King books, as you do. And I really feel like from when I originally saw this movie, which is I rented it when I was younger and probably going through a Stephen King phase. I first started like watching his movies. I think I saw Pet Sematary first, and then I saw the It miniseries, and I started reading his books, and that's kind of how it went. So I love the movie then. I thought it was really fantastic. I've revisited it a couple times over the years, and I've always enjoyed it. And rewatching it again for this, I was like, this movie is actually really, really good. And it's good because it's this tiny cast of these 2 people, and they do such a great job of just selling the story and in commanding the screen, basically. I mean, Kathy Bates is incredible, but James Caan is great too. Like, you can't take away from him. He does a great job. The movie does very closely follow the book. It's definitely like a very faithful adaptation. I'm sure Stephen King loves this movie because for the most part, it follows the book very closely. There are a couple of things that are different. The famous hobbling, like breaking the ankles scene is different in the book, which I guess we'll get to when we get to that part. But in general, it's very similar. The thing about the book, like the book Misery, is like when Stephen King wrote Misery, he was high as fuck on coke, okay?
Yeah.
And you don't even have to know that. Like, you don't need Stephen King to tell you that. Read the book. You'll be able to tell. There are certain books by Stephen King that you read them and you're like, he was on drugs. This one and Cujo are like the big ones for me. I read this book and there were points where like, basically whenever like Paul would be like all fucked up on drugs because like she was like dosing him and stuff and he'd be in and out of consciousness, like Stephen King would literally write like a person who was like semi-conscious to the point where I'd read a whole chapter and I'd be like, I don't know what I just read. Like, I'd have to go back. There'd be chapters that would just be like one sentence. And then it was just insane. Like, it's such a weird book to read. And the movie's more accessible, definitely, because, of the cocaine, I imagine. So.
I mean, that's how I found it. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly, right?
You're reading the book and like the spacing between all the words gets closer and closer, so it's like mirroring the effects of cocaine.
So like that's like a joke, but it almost like felt like that. And I haven't read it in a long time, but like when I read it, I was like, I swear to God, and I might be misremembering this, but there's like this thing where he writes like, writes out like noises, and then he writes these sounds even in haze, and like that's the chapter. And I swear to God, that's Misery. I'm going to Google it because I don't think I'm making it up. I know it's in a book, and I'm pretty sure it's Misery. I'm pretty sure it's Stephen King. But that's like what it would be like. The
onomatopoeia is just next level.
It was just insane. Like I was like, he is on drugs right now, and like Cujo's another book like that where you read it, you're like, he's on drugs, but in a different way. Like Cujo had no chapters. It was just like one big book, and like this book is like. You would read Misery, like you would read the book Paul was writing too, which was what was really interesting. And there was more information on like his unnamed manuscript, that Annie makes him burn and stuff. But anyways, the long and short of it is, I think this is a great movie that holds up really, really well. I think it's a really good thriller. I think Kathy Bates is great, and I think it's a movie that Stephen King would be proud of. So yeah,
fuck yeah.
That's what I have to say.
Hell yeah, nice, I love it. Zoheb, hit me.
Man, Jess, you've hit the nail on the head. This movie is fucking fantastic. This was actually my second time watching it for the podcast. Oh, well, I mean, like my first time watching it for the podcast, but my second time watching it ever. I did watch this movie quite a while back, like to the point that I kind of like nearly forgot most of it. Has this been spoofed in like The Simpsons or Family Guy or anything? Because I feel like it has. Like this whole kind of like situation where like
I'm
there's
sure
a writer,
The Simpsons
like
has done it.
yeah, I feel like it's a Treehouse of Horror episode or like a segment. Because I don't know, I feel like I saw it on one of those before I saw the actual movie. And then when I saw the movie, I was like, oh, I've seen this before. Kind of like that, you know, situation where like you watch the fucking old scary movies first and then it's like, oh, okay. And then you watch The Ring and then you're like, oh, okay. So they're doing like, you know, you're going the other way. Kind of like that. I think that's what happened to me with this movie. But man, this movie is just so fucking good. I like as I've been getting a bit older, like I kind of like older, fucking, fucking got my grey hairs and shit. No, as I'm getting older and older, I do like these kind of like movies that are set in one location with a very small cast, and then like those kinds of movies to me become more and more about the tension that escalates throughout the fucking movie. Like, man, my number one pick for those kinds of movies is The Hateful Eight. Like, man, what Tarantino is able to do with that situation and that setting is just so fucking great. And this movie is like way up there for me with that as well, because it's not only just the danger with Annie Wilkes, like who's this fucking obsessed fanatic. It's also the elements, right? Like you're kind of stuck in this like snowstorm and like, you know, the weather's fucking literally the weather's driven you off the road. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's that element of it too. I know it's not as prevalent here as it is in Hateful Eight, but it's still like a factor that I really love. This movie, like I said, I'm not a big Stephen King aficionado, but I have seen like his bigger movies, like the bigger adaptation of his movies. Like obviously I've seen The Shining, and one of them I really wanted to talk about with this is Stand By Me, because this is the only other movie.
Stand By Me.
Oh, how good is it? I mean, like that's the only other movie that's directed by Rob Reiner, and it's also a Stephen King adaptation. Every time someone talks about Rob Reiner, I just think of the character that he plays in Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort's father. He's like obsessed with like what is it, The Equalizer, and he's always like swearing and shit. Oh god, I love Rob Reiner. He's such a great fucking character. Well, I mean, actor, but yeah. I don't know what else to fucking add to this, man. Like, I know I'm going to get steamrolled on this fucking podcast by you two. So, yeah, it's I think what also really works in this movie's favor is the pacing. Holy shit, is the pacing of this movie fucking fantastic. Like, you don't feel the length of this movie. I mean, like, obviously, because it's, what is it, an hour and 45, right? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Something like that.
Like you don't feel it, and you should. Like, I mean, like, you know, on paper you kind of should. Like, it's like it's mostly a 2-man screenplay, the 2-actor screenplay in one location.
Right, just 2 people talking.
Right, and it shouldn't. You should feel the length of it, but you don't, because it's just so well fucking done. I don't want to go past Richard Farnsworth and Francis Sternhagen as Buster and Virginia. Holy shit, are these two fucking great. They have the most natural banter between the two. Like, you would expect them to be a real life couple, but they're not.
Yes.
And it's just so adorable watching these two. And the goodwill that you build up between... Sorry, the goodwill that you build up throughout the movie with Buster's character until he fucking meets his fate in the way that he does. It just like it's such a soul crushing moment, and it's just such a moment that just absolutely solidifies Annie as just an absolutely batshit insane villain. We got to talk fucking Annie Wilkes, dude. We got to talk Kathy Bates, because goddamn is she a fucking powerhouse in this movie. She won her Oscar for this, which is absolutely well deserved. You know these kinds of people. You know the kinds of people who are so, and I talked about this already a little bit on the upcoming Attractions episode that we just released last week. The people that are so obsessed with like the media that they're really into, or like whatever piece of entertainment that they're really into, they live it, right? Like they want their specific character or the person that they grew up with or this sort of fictional character that they grew up with to go a certain way. And when it doesn't go that way, they lose their shit. And yeah, I'm talking about toxic fandom because that's what it is.
Well, yeah.
It's kind of weird because it's like this is a movie made in 1990, mostly pre-internet. And then you get to the internet. Literally this past month, we've got this situation with the Snyder Cut, which is, the situation with like Zack Snyder and Justice League and Joss Whedon, how he came in and then like no one was happy with that movie. And like, you got this like vocal minority of like, people being like, well, Zack Snyder's got a cut of his movie out there somewhere. And then you got celebrities chiming in now. And it's like there's no... It's the effect of the fandom trying to, I guess, have things their way, if that makes sense. And, that you can like extrapolate that to the Star Wars fan base with The Last Jedi, petitions of like, removing this movie from the canon, which was a real thing. Like that's next fucking level. And then we talked about the Sonic the Hedgehog and the way, the fan base reacted to the actual design of the character and how the studio was like, okay, we're going to spend like a few $1 million to remake or like redo the design of this character. And it's just like, this movie is so fucking relevant to today. Like, it's just so like the way Annie Wilkes acts towards, Paul Sheldon and the way her thinking kind of like works 100% in terms of like the way things are today. And I kind of wanted to go on a bit of a rant about that. I'm sorry. Like, here I am.
No, you're having yourself a fucking Annie Wilkes ramble over there. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, because it just and I did listen to the Rogues Gallery one, and there's a great. I just have to directly quote Chris on this because Chris was like, "This has always existed, and this is not this is not just a post-internet type of group. Like there's always been people like this." And I think that now now that people have Reddits to go to and social media to run to and stuff, now they have, like you said, a vocal minority who just goes on and on and on about it. Like, do I want to see a Snyder cut of Justice League? Like, fuck, why not? It's not going to make it it's not going to make it it's not going to fix it, but at the same time, like you have these people that are, that petitioning, like you said, to remove Last Jedi. And then you have these like how many people bitched about Sonic the Hedgehog versus how many people are actually going to go see it.
That's
very
what's
fucked up.
Point.
Exactly.
That's what's fucked up. Is you cost a studio, how many millions did it cost them to fix this? I don't know off the top of my head. However much money it took them to fix this movie, they are never going to make that back. Like they're not.
No offense.
Right. Well, because you've taken a character that was from, God, when I was growing up, Sonic was the shit. I was playing it on a Sega Genesis,
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Me too. I remember those days.
Right. And and those games are still around, don't get me wrong, but the movie looks to be catered towards a younger audience, but it's a group of 30 to 40-year-old men who are like, you ruined my childhood.
100%.
It's like, dude. Like, you're not even gonna fucking go see it. Like, you'll make some snide comment on fucking Twitter and but you were the first one to bitch about it. And now that it's fixed, you'll be the first one to call it a dog shit movie. And so it does suck. And it's kind of, I think that it hits a point where there's, I love Morgan Freeman said it at one point because there was just, all the trolling and just fucking hate mongering and showing the internet. He's like, sometimes it's just time to turn it off. He's like, just turn it off. It's like, just stop paying attention to it. And it's like, it sucks because it's still there, but it's kind of like the more that people feed into it and they're outraged, the more that people are outraged by the fact that they're changing something, adds to it. But then the people who are outraged because those people, it just snowballs and it gets bigger. And it's like, it's just a sometimes, and don't be wrong, as people who review stuff and podcast stuff, there are times on this podcast I have said, if I were to do this, I would change this and do it in this type of way. I didn't write my fucking congressman. I didn't send a letter to Warner Brothers. Like, I didn't launch an online petition. And it's like, man, just fucking let it go. Like the problem is, and this is the last thing I'm going to say about it. These people let this stuff define themselves. And that's what's fucked up. Like, I like Blade Runner. Blade Runner does not define Colin Duncan. It does not. It's a huge part of what I love, but it does not define me. And I think people latch their identities on with this stuff, and that's where they start getting fucking just, oh my god,
Right.
you know, did I like the new RoboCop? No, but I didn't like bitch to the fucking, you know, gills about it. You know,
Right.
whatever, let somebody else do it. It's not a big deal.
With these like long running franchises, like at some point you kind of have to say, okay, well, this isn't for me anymore. Like the old one was, like, that's fine, but you know, at some point you got to step away and be like, this, I'm not the target audience anymore. Like, you know, I'm at a different point in my life. I'm watching this piece of media now, and it's not really for me. It's not made for me. So yeah. But anyway, man, like that's the end of that. I'm not going to fucking talk it much more about toxic fandom because
it's a good point though. Just in general, like imagine this story set today, like in the age of social media. Like imagine what Annie would be like today.
Should be totally normal.
Just think about it.
And it's one of the few
She'd
that
have
like
a podcast for sure. Let's be honest.
She would.
As much as I love this movie, I would not hate to see it. It would be a good time and place for it to be remade. I would not hate it. I think that, I mean, we kind of have that with Castle Rock Season 2 in a way, not a remake, you know, more of an origin story, but it would not hurt my feelings at all to see something like, you know, a new interpretation of this.
Hell yeah.
I guess I should probably go with my thoughts now.
Yeah, go ahead, dude. I've said my piece. Really dig this movie. Really keen to cover it. And thanks for jumping on, Jess. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So yeah, this was a family film of ours growing up. We watched this like as a family, and yeah, I know that might seem. Right. Well, and because my mom was a librarian. My uncle was a huge Stephen King fan. He actually lent me his hardback original 86 copy of It to like read. It was the first Stephen King book I ever read when I was like, I came kind of late in the game. I was only like 19 or 20 when I first started actually reading King. This was just something that we all watched, and it was on TV because they had an edited, you know, version of it for television, and we could all watch. And it reminded me of films like Sleeping with the Enemy. Oh God, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, the movie with Michael Keaton and Matthew Modine. I think it's called Pacific Heights, where like Michael Keaton is like he rents an apartment near them, and it's more like Cape Fear than it's like this movie, but it is like just the stalker thriller kind of film was huge around this time. And we loved watching stuff like that. I mean, just as a family, we loved like that thriller kind of feel to these movies. And I couldn't tell you the first time I saw it. I think my brother got the book and did it for a book report in like the 8th or 9th grade. And I knew of the differences between it. I knew, you know, about, you know, the way he's actually hobbled in the novel and stuff like that. And I didn't know until I actually started reading Stephen King's On Writing, which is a fantastic book about like his struggles with addiction and how Annie Wilkes was a symbolic character for his drug abuse. But she was also a symbolic character of his fan base, and that he wrote that book Eyes of the Dragon, and it was way more fantasy, and people lost their fucking minds over it or something because it was just so not Stephen King. And he was, I guess, just so interesting, you know, the way that fans reacted to that. And I think that a movie like this, you can say a movie like this only comes around every once in a while, and I think a lot of people say that too much, and it ends up becoming overused and overdone. But there really is a movie like this that only comes around so often, and a movie that is perfectly, I mean, let's just, you know, Kathy Bates, James Caan, Rob Reiner, Stephen King, William Goldman, who wrote the script. He wrote fucking Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and Princess Bride. He's an amazing writer, William Goldman. Zoheb, who's the director of photography on this movie? I know you know it.
Barry Sonnenfeld, who is the director of our next movie that we're covering on the podcast. Yeah, he's a fucking massive director now.
Yeah, and he's actually, like, as I get older, one of my favorite directors. I love the Addams Family movies. I love Men in Black. I love just about everything that Barry Sonnenfeld. He's like a Tim Burton Jr. to me. I don't know what it is. He's got a very like Tim Burton like sensibility to me, and I mean, maybe that's just me. He's not exactly the same. Right, exactly. That I mean, it felt like a Tim Burton movie. but I love Barry Sonnenfeld, and I think this this movie bolsters, I mean, just some insane talent behind it, and I absolutely love it. I think that, like I said, a movie like this only comes around every once in a while. A villain like Annie Wilkes only comes around so often, who can be cutting, I mean, mentally devastating. She's cunning, she's smart, she can be psychotic, but at the same time she can flip it like a switch. And like when the sheriff shows up, she's like, "Oh, hi, how are you?" Like, that's terrifying. That is the wolf in sheep's clothing just to a T. And I think that when you take someone, she has all those things, but then she is a physically imposing figure. She looks like she could take a fucking punch, for real. Like, you could throw everything you could at Annie Wilkes and she'd probably turn right around and fucking bum rush you.
Real.
And that's terrifying. That is a great villain, you know? The physically strong, but at the same time mentally just conniving type of character, and the obsession of her as well. It's just fucking fantastic, and I think that I'm glad that Stephen King was able to get out of the addiction that he was in, which is just, I mean, reading from his point of view of it, it's just insane. And I'm sure you've read this, Jess, where they staged his intervention and they emptied out all of his drawers and his office desk, and it was like empty bags of cocaine, like Listerine bottles, cough syrup, joint roaches, beer cans, and like, I mean, you're drinking fucking Listerine and you're worth like $40 million. Like, what the fuck? Like, that's
insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, I figured he'd be drinking fucking Dom Perignon. You know, I wouldn't think that Stephen King would be chugging fucking Scope with his minty fresh breath.
Wait, you're telling me you're not supposed
Paul
to swallow
Sheldon?
the Listerine?
You tell me I'm not supposed to drink the Kool-Aid? No, and I think that, like, exactly what you said, she's more relevant now than ever, but what's crazy is that she's not a troll like people on the internet are nowadays. She's just a psychopath. I think that's the thing. I think that she doesn't have fandoms that she connects to like this. All she cares about is misery. It's not like she's a fan of a genre and there's 4 or 5 things in that genre she loves. All she cares about is misery. And I think she is the extreme version of what we see a lot of today. And you know what's crazy that I also thought about is, you know, I guess we can just kind of go right in with Paul wrecking this car at the beginning, just to kind of nice little transition there. The thing is, you know, what's fucked up is all of this shit. And I sat there and had like a holy shit kind of moment. If Annie does not come along, and I mean, it's all this crazy shit that she does is so fucked up, but without it, Paul is dead. He is never found in the car.
100%.
And it's crazy that he has to go through all of the shit, but he would be fucking dead. And it made me think about it, like, what would you rather do? Would you rather freeze to death in the car, or would you rather have this woman be at the begging, you know, be at the mercy of this woman for however many months he's there and her fucking breaking your ankles and shit? Or would you rather die, or would you rather risk it staying with this woman? And I was like, holy shit, that's kind of crazy. I didn't think about that.
It's a good question. Yeah.
Right. Well, kind of in these beginning moments, let's just jump right in here because, hey, I fucking love this movie. It's a goddamn great movie. It's Stephen King. Fuck off. What do you want? We see kind of Paul's tradition of finishing these books. He's finished this untitled kind of, I guess, like almost like a memoir, almost like autobiographical. It seems like it's a lot more closer to home. And it's really weird seeing James Caan of the Corleone family writing these misery love novels. I was like, what the fuck? Like, and part of that I read is what intrigued him about it, because it was a break of typecast for him, which was great. I mean, I think everybody should reach for that at some point. But it is very odd seeing this guy who's like the bad dad and Elf, and he did that show Las Vegas, you know, and he's Sonny Corleone, and he's in Thief with Michael Mann. I mean, he did so much shit, and it's like, wow, that's kind of crazy.
He's not playing the tough guy. It's good. Like, it's a good change for him.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But I love all this. superstitious writer kind of trope. You know, he smokes the one cigarette, he drinks the Dom Perignon. You know, he does these things in order, and it almost reminds me of like athletes. Like athletes are very like don't change their gym socks because they bring them luck. It's like
don't
it's
shave
very
your beard.
Right. It's nice. It's funny seeing those things kind of bleed over from different forms of, you know, sports or leisure or, you know, or art or whatever. It's really kind of crazy. But you know, Paul gets into his Mustang. I love him throwing the snowball. Still got it. And that music starts. It's like, dude, I love that. I really dig the way that, I mean, really, we just show him kind of driving. And in the first 5 minutes, we're fucking locked and loaded and we're in this movie. He wrecks the car. We see his, you know, oh yeah, he's talking to Lauren Bacall, by the way, his agent. Dude, she's married to fucking Humphrey Bogart. I was like, holy shit. Like, I didn't realize who this woman was. I'd never seen Lauren Bacall in a movie. I didn't really know anything about her, and I started reading about her. I was like, holy shit, she acted her ass off while she was alive. She was in a lot of stuff. But I mean, really, in the first like 5 minutes, we're fucking locked and loaded and in this movie. We see him wrecking the car, and it's fucking, you know, it's crazy. I mean, right off the rip, you would think for a movie that only kind of takes place in one setting that's an hour and 45 minutes long, that it would seem that the wreck might happen like towards the later part of, you know what I mean? Like not in the first 5 minutes, maybe the first 10, maybe the first 15, but right off the rip in the first 5 minutes, it's right there. I was like, that's crazy. Because watching this now, I was thinking, yeah, this is going to start 10, 15 minutes down the road so they can, you know, kind of build up to this. No, it starts like right away. And he, you know, he tells his agent, you know, she's like, yeah, well, look what Misery did. She put braces on your daughter's teeth and put her through college, and you go off and kill her. And it's like, I do like that line. It's really funny. But like he says, you know, I don't want this to become my life. He's like, you know, maybe if I can finish this book, I will have something that I'll be proud to put on my tombstone. But I kind of wanted to get a look at one of the Misery books if they were like 50 Shades of Grey, you know, like I really wanted to see if it was like some just dirty shit that he was writing.
It looks like garbage.
Like Danielle Steele, like
yes.
Those like romance novels. Like that's how I imagine it. Like the ones with like Fabio on the cover.
Yes, right. Like
that's how I imagine Misery's novels. Like shit I would never read.
You lost me.
We lost you when we were talking about Stephen King novels.
I was just about to say, like, I rarely read.
I was gonna say, have you read
fiction
anything?
anymore? I rarely read fiction anymore. I'm like, I've been totally like on this kick of like reading autobiographical shit. So like, I mean, like, I will dive back into fiction here, and I'll start off with Danielle Steele. So there you go.
Don't. That is not a recommendation from me.
That's some shit.
It's like what my grandma reads. Okay.
I was going to say that is some shit my 65-year-old mom reads. So like,
no joke. I'm pretty sure my grandma has Danielle Steele books. I'm pretty sure my aunt has like a secret collection of them. Like
it's
that's
just,
all I know.
Harry Potter was my bread and butter when I was a kid. Okay, so.
It's just so weird looking at James Caan being like, you wrote like as she unsheathed his cutlass and he exposed her bare breast to the wind. Like, what the fuck? Like, that's so weird. But basically, Paul wrecks, you know, this is the whole setup. I love the imagery of him in the car and just coming to all the blood all over his face. You're like, holy shit, this is bad. Like, the wreck doesn't look terrible. You know, it's like, it's kind of bad. And then you look at the car, you're like, oh, fuck. Like, he's really fucked up. But Annie comes and saves the day. Yeah, fucking linebacker Annie Wilkes. Holy shit. Like, prides it
Right?
open. Well, and the crazy part to me, I don't know if any of you guys caught this, but she looks inside the car. Her first instinct is not to grab Paul and get him out of the car. She grabs the book.
Correct.
She puts the
so
book
important.
away. And I was like, ooh. I felt so proud of myself for catching that. I was like, I got you, bitch. Like, I see what you're doing there. But yeah,
I got a question for you guys.
Yeah.
Okay, so would you have preferred her in this situation here in the car wreck? Would you have preferred her to somehow had set up this car wreck so she can get Paul in her house, or would you rather had been an accident?
Go for it, Jess.
I think that's hard because I think that almost makes it like too malicious and a little
evil,
too cute.
too sinister. Yeah.
Like like it's almost like just like too cute, like her being like, I like the idea that she sits and just watches him constantly and knows his routine and knows he always comes to this cabin and she's just waiting for her opportunity. Because we know she's a killer, right? She's killed people before, but that's also opportunistic. It's because she's working as a nurse and she has these sick patients. It's not like she's going out and putting people in a situation where she acts in this manner. She's like a very opportunistic psychopath. So
that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, I didn't consider that.
I think it'd be too cute. I think I would complain. Like, I think I'd bitch about it if it was that way.
Well, you'd be right here on this podcast doing it. So.
I'd be complaining about it.
Well, I think when you look at someone like Annie, I don't think that she has. I mean, it's Paul Sheldon. Like, would she be able to? Because she doesn't know what happened. She could very well kill him, and she would probably kill herself for doing that. So she just, I think not only, I think if this were a normal person, I mean, we see what she's capable of. She pushes people down the stairs and murders people later on. So I don't think killing people is beyond her possibilities, but the fact that she can't control what might happen to Paul if she sends this car flying off, you know, he could break his neck. Sorry. I think anything could happen. So it is kind of interesting. Like, she just waits for that moment. She's almost like the spiders you see that wait underground, and if something pops up, they come out of the cave and snatch it and pull it back in. I was like, holy shit.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, she pries him open with that crowbar, which is definitely going to come back later. And she God, uphill with that man on top of her, like, holy shit! I just expected it to be like Danny DeVito, like under the clothes, like as a stunt man or something, just like some
oh my God,
some portly gentleman like hauling her up. But yeah, he wakes up and I mean, he wakes up what's the first thing he fucking hears when he wakes up? I'm your number one fan. And you're like, oh my God, like all distorted and crazy like that.
Yeah, not like, hey, how are you feeling? Can you see me? How many fingers am I holding up? No. It's I'm your number one fan. Like that says so much about Annie Wilkes' character.
In this, actually, it comes back to the question like that you asked, like if she had staged this accident, all of these things, and she wouldn't have done that. She probably was just like, oh, I'm so lucky that I can rescue him. Right. Because let's remember, she has not read Misery's Child and does not know he has killed Misery at this point. And she hasn't read the unnamed manuscript that she can't stand because of the swearing. So at this point, like, Paul's all good in her book. Like, she doesn't want him dead. She doesn't want to torture him. She doesn't want anything. She's, like, so excited to read his new book. She finds out all the stuff while he's there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm,
like, she's probably like, this is the best opportunity ever. Like, she didn't want him to get hurt and be in the situation. But when she saw it, she's like, let me take this.
Right.
And then she started to spiral once she started reading those two books.
Well, and it's so interesting when you think about Annie, because it's like, imagine if she had just healed Paul after 2 days, taken him to the hospital. Man, she would be, she'd have a book dedicated in her honor. She would have all this attention drawn to her. She'd get fucking Christmas cards every year from him. But I mean, at the same time, it draws the attention to her that, hey, this woman is probably a murderer who got away with it. It's going to redrudge all of that shit back up, which is interesting. I think that plays a part of it, that she's like, if I draw this media attention to me, so people are going to start digging my past up and shit.
That's an interesting point. I never thought about that. That's true.
Well, and there's a really funny part about the whole shit in Denver later on that I'll get to. I almost blurted it out because it's so fucking funny, but I can't wait to get to it. She says, I'm your number one fan. She gives him the pills, says that he's been there 2 days and that she's a nurse, and the roads are closed, the phone lines are down, and fucking 9 minutes. 9 minutes. And here we are on the setting we will be for the next hour and 40 minutes. Like, holy shit. That's still mind blowing to me that right off the rip, they're just right here. They waste no time.
It's a tight script. Absolutely.
That's crazy. I didn't even realize it was that quick until like hearing you say like the timeline. Like, that's a good movie if you can in 9 minutes establish.
Oh yeah.
It's tight like
everything.
A tiger. She goes over Paul's injuries, says she'll take him to the hospital as soon as the roads are open. That fucking gnarly ass leg reveal. Oh my God, dude. So like, have any of you guys ever broken a bone?
Yeah. Like
a toe once.
What'd you break, Zoe?
I broke my ankle on my right leg. I love that you go straight to me and not even straight to the toes of Jess. It's like, that's not an injury.
Like, all right,
that's not an injury.
It doesn't count. I sprained a couple ankles in my day. That's about it.
Dude,
I'm very safe.
I've only broken an arm once, but I have dislocated the same knee twice in like 10 years. And laying on the ground and looking over and seeing your knee out of socket and laying on the side of your leg is like, I almost vomited both times. And of course,
talking about it makes me want to puke.
Dude, I had to slap it like back into place. I just slapped it and it popped right back into place. Never went to the hospital either time, by the way. But funny mini side tangent. So the way I broke my ankle was I fell off a roller coaster. And what?
Because they didn't clip the safety bar on properly, and I was like in second grade.
How are you not a millionaire?
I've never heard this story. Oh my god! Sometimes I Google accidents at amusement parks like for fun for hours. Like this is amazing.
Yeah, no, this sapped up my entire second grade because we did sue them and we did win, and that's how I have my car.
Nice, fucking nice.
What kind of roller? I want to know everything about this.
I can send you photos and shit. Yeah,
please.
I can
not
send
of like your injuries, but like of the roller coaster and like maybe any news articles. If you could send them my way.
I can send you the news article. Absolutely. Yeah.
Holy shit!
Oh my god, this is so exciting.
I fucking never knew this. Holy hell!
I wish you knew how obsessed I am with amusement park accidents. Holy shit! Like this is. I'm telling you. Ask anyone who knows me. Sometimes I go down a Google rabbit hole and I literally will Google like amusement park accidents for like hours. Like I'm now afraid of amusement
that's
parks.
So weirdly specific.
I know it is. It's true though. Like I'm telling you a true story right now. I'm sharing this with you guys.
That's so. What, they like faulty lock you in. Like the straps weren't done.
Yeah. So they didn't. So it was in the carriage, like because it wasn't really a full on like roller coaster with like a linear sort of track. It kind of like I don't know. It's hard to explain, but like
it went like a circle, like a kiddie one.
Yeah. No, it wasn't a kiddie one. It was definitely it was fucking for adults.
Did you go upside down? Because that would have been terrible.
No, didn't go upside down. But like basically, me, my brother, and my dad were in the same carriage, and like we were in there, and they clipped us in, and the bar kind of came off in the middle of the. Like while it was operating, and my dad, like it's crazy because I remember everything about that day. It was fucking insane. But yeah,
dude, if I were your dad, I would have punched some motherfuckers out, dude. There's no way. Like,
my dad was like, my dad was injured too. Like he had broken fingers and shit. And
holy shit,
because like it was insane. Like I fully remember like the ambulance ride and Crazy.
Ambulance ride. What a pussy. Anyways, no, I'm just kidding.
You always refuse the ambulance. God, you can tell you're not from America.
I was like fucking 6 years old. Oh no, 8 years old. So fuck you.
That's crazy, man. That's fucking. Well, the whole point of me bringing up these injuries is like, the feeling of that, of your immobility from your toe or your ankle or dislocating a knee. Now imagine you could hear your bones in your leg moving around. Like, I feel like Jim Carrey in that scene of Dumb and Dumber when he sees Harry and Mary like kissed, and he's like, like immediately like, I can't like,
Colin, you did that same fucking sound effect last episode when we talked aliens, and you brought up that same fucking reference. Do you want to talk about Dumb and Dumber? Is that our next fucking pick?
That is the next podcast.
Mary, it's Mary. No, I fucking love to do that movie, but. So yes, we have this gnarly ass leg reveal. His leg just completely fucking mangled. I mean, so basically he's got one good arm. That's it. I mean, and the other, she had to pop his shoulder blade back in. She's had to reset his. I'm not going to go through the laundry list of shit that's broken, but he's fucked up. Basically, and we see her, the legs and the stents. I mean, she does a good job. She is a knowledgeable nurse, right? Yeah. She obviously does well. Paul's agent calls the Silver Creek police, and we're introduced.
Colin, I don't want to go past the pills. She talks about the novel.
Yes, the novel. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, which is, I mean, you ever taken that shit? It is a blast. No, I'm just kidding. I've never.
That sounded fake to me. Is it not made up?
I don't know. It probably is. I don't know. It sounds like a real drug.
It is fictional. It is. I just Googled it because I'm like, I know it's called Novel in the book too. I wonder if it's real. I typed in Novel and this is what comes up. Misery, 1990, frequently asked questions. 15 fictional movie pharmaceutical drugs.
Oh, nice.
Never heard of it. You know what? Novel sounds like nasal, so I think Stephen King was like, what do I shove up my nose? So he's like,
up my nose. I wonder what it's based on. Now I'm going.
There is, because Novel made me think of like, man, there's some. I mean, because if it's a fake drug, he does such a good job of making a fake drug that it sounds so real. I was like, Novel? I was like, that sounds kind of. At first, it had me thinking like, did she get some kind of expired painkiller that's not on the market anymore and like take it all home with her? Like, is that? I don't know. It just made me think like, is she like jacking Quaaludes from the 80s? Like, what's going on here?
So much of it. Yeah,
it's funny. I think I picked up on it immediately that it wasn't real. Like for me, like I'm pretty good with that kind of stuff. That's like, oh, it's kind of fictional.
Oh, well, good for you. No, I'm just kidding.
for me, it was like, oh, Wakanda, that's not real. that's not a real place.
Yeah, it just seemed like a morphine like type. Like, yeah. I don't know. Like, I know like animal medicine, not human medicine. So I'm like, Novel, that could be real. Like, sure.
But yeah, she starts giving him the pills right off the rip. She's fucking just opening them up and shit. Paul's agent calls the Silver Creek police, and we are introduced to Buster. Is this Richard Farnsworth? Is that the name? Am I saying that right?
Richard Farnsworth, yeah,
Richard Farnsworth. Oh man, as soon as they said Farnsworth, I was just like,
I know.
Good news, everyone. That's like all I could think of was Futurama. As soon as she said Farnsworth, but I mean, right off the rip, how personable this guy. I mean, I grew up in a small 20 to 30,000 population town, in the South. This guy feels so real. I have met this guy. I know this guy
absolutely,
and he seems so. Oh my god, like it's like. I'm also the chairman for the chief of police ballroom something, and if you need a fishing guide, you could do a lot worse. Call me Buster. Everybody does. God damn, like right off the rip, he's so
natural.
Right. Well,
he's
and I think
likable.
that it's so intentional too, because by the end of it, he's walking around with fucking both barrels of a sawed off in the fucking back. Like, I mean, it sucks, but it just makes that knife dig so much deeper because he's a mystic to me. Like he has this, it's the really blue eyes, it's the white hair, it's the badass jacket.
He has a mustache, right?
Yeah, that white ass mustache. He's and that awesome fucking like fleece jacket. I'm like, this guy's like a Texas Ranger or something. Like, I don't know what it is about him.
Like, I trust people with mustaches, like older gentlemen, not like the pedophile mustache, but like an older guy with a mustache like that is like, I'm like, okay, like he can be trusted. Like, right, I don't know why.
Like a Sam Elliott stash. Like, it's what it feels like.
I swear I was like flying on a plane once and I was like so nervous and I saw the pilot and he like literally was like that Sam Elliott like look to him and like, he's an older guy with like that mustache. I'm like, I feel safe now. Like as soon as I saw him, and my plane didn't crash, so that was good.
Not only do I feel safe, I am slightly aroused at this man who looks like Sam Elliott.
Exactly.
So yeah, the agent calls in. She's worried because Paul hasn't called her, but he also hasn't reached out to his daughter. He keeps in touch when he's doing a book. She asked that Buster call her if he hears anything about Sheldon. Sorry. Oh God. The interesting part is I love how she's like, I don't know, there's something kind of like a movie star kind of quality to her, obviously, but she's like, tell me I'm being silly. And he's just like, yeah, sure, whatever. I'll call you if I hear anything. Like she's, I don't know, there's something, he's so warm and friendly right off the bat that these two people who don't even know each other, I don't know, to me, that was like a very forward gesture. Like, you could just tell me I'm being silly about this. He's like, no, check it out. I'll let you know if I see anything.
He writes like a Post-it note to himself.
Right. And I love the whole thing of the system. That is exactly like how my little desk and shit looks at work. There's shit scattered everywhere. And I'm like, it's a system. Don't fuck with it. Don't touch it. Like, it all works. So yeah, basically we're introduced to Buster right here. He writes a Post-it note. I love seeing him flick with the rubber band. It just shows you that he's thinking about this. He is processing the facts as he knows them, even however minimal so far. Annie gives Paul a shave, and she gushes over how much she enjoys his work, how she's glad she saved him so that the world can get more of his work. I love how careful she is not to hurt him here. It just shows, again, how much she loves Paul, but we don't know to the extent how much she loves him yet. Yeah, it's just like, okay, well, she's a number one fan. Okay, cool. But she's a decent human being and probably doesn't want to slit his throat. No, she's not a decent human being. She would slit anybody's throat, but it's fucking, especially about this guy.
It's like she's molding a sculpture and she's like being very careful not to fucking damage it. Like, like the amount of love and care and tenderness that she's showing Paul here, it's already telling of like how, I mean, she's told us already of like how big of a fan she is, but like this is like through her actions, like you know that she is next level deranged.
Mm-hmm. Right. And the way that she's dressed as well, there's something about the huge bundle of clothes and stuff that she's wearing. She's not, I mean, she has the buttoned all the way to the top.
She's basically a nun.
Right. And she's got the cross around her neck and like there's almost no skin exposed except for her head and her hands.
There's like no sexual anything about her. She's very like, not like androgynous, but just like sexless, like in the big clothes and in like no skin showing. It's very...
Right.
I mean, like,
it's not like a sexual thing.
Right. But I mean, like, you know that like all this like sexual repression is going to lead to some big old fucking sluttiness somewhere down the line.
She basically,
like if she had not died in this movie, you don't even know how she would have slutted it up after this experience. Dude. Okay, the club she would have gone to, the outfit she would have worn.
No, dude, I'm telling you, she's gonna be making out with old man Buster while he's dead. That's that thing. Like that's her style.
Thank God rigor mortis set in on his penis. Oh fuck! Now I forgot what I was going to say. God damn it! Now I lost it.
Did I ruin your necrophilia?
You did. I ruined myself there. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking about. She's about as she's got about as much sex appeal as a bag of potatoes, basically.
Yes.
I've had sex with potatoes, man. Right. Have you seen the way I look at fries, dude? Come on.
I am Scottish. You back off. That's my woman. Exactly what you guys said. There's something repressed. How buttoned up she is, how clothed she is, how there's no skin showing. There's just layers upon layers, and the closer you get to the center of it, the closer it stinks. And not just because she probably smells like shit. No, I'm just kidding. So Paul asks about the phone lines, to which Annie says they're still down until the road's open again, but she can keep trying them in the meantime. She also notices his new book and asks Paul to read it, which Paul allows. And I love the way he does this. I do have a very hard and fast rule about who reads my stuff at such an early stage. Only my editor, my agent, and anyone who saves me from freezing to death in a car wreck. I'm like, oh, it's so charming. Dig it, man.
In any other situation, this would be great because like the way she reacts is kind of adorable. Like, you know, she's so good at like pulling you in, like at making you trust her. Like her reaction to that is like, oh, that's kind of sweet. Like, you know, but that's all before she becomes a fucking maniac. Sorry, Jess, what were you going to say?
Isn't it interesting to all of you? And I think this every time I watch this, or she has this book, she saves it from the car. Paul has no idea about anything. And she does not just go and read it on her own. Yeah. She waits until he is healthy enough that she can ask him if she can read it.
That's a really good catch.
Very, very interesting because I'm not sure if... And clearly she hasn't read it. She's not lying to him and she has already read it and she's saying like, can I read it? Like you've done that. Like I remember like I used to watch like Lost with my dad and like we'd watch the episodes together and like sometimes like I'd get home from school and he wouldn't be home from work and I'd literally watch an episode of Lost and then rewatch it with him and pretend I hadn't seen it. Like, you know, we've all told those lies in our life.
I've done that too. Like, but actually I've done that to people that I've seen movies with in the cinema. Like I'd go watch it myself, like on like opening day, and then it's like, oh yeah, I haven't seen that movie. Let's go watch it. And then
you're like, because you like to do the opening day thing, like I do. But it's just so interesting to me. But she's obviously not lying because she's so angry about the book when she reads it that you know she wasn't lying. So it's like, what if Paul had said no, she couldn't read it? Like, it's just such an interesting thing about Annie, and like you say, like to pull you into her almost as a person. You're like, oh, she could have told him the book was lost. Like she never even had to tell him she took the book from the car. You know what I mean? But she does. She lets him know she saved the book, and she asks him. It's almost like she wants his approval, like to a degree. Yeah. She wants Paul to be like, yes, read my book, Annie.
Right.
You know?
Yes.
Like it's really interesting. It's very smart.
Right. It kind of has this feeling of like, you did a good thing, Annie. I'm validating you. I will allow you to do this. Like, because
she wants that.
Right. And I think it makes sense with her. I mean, as fucked up as it is, this moral code that she has about sleeping with people and dating and, there's no nobility to it. Like, I mean, do I think she really in her core possesses those things? No, it's only surface level shit. Like when it comes down to taking away the thing that she loves, all those things go out the window. But when it's like, something about this book, like, I mean, what would Paul do if he was like, no, I don't want you to read it? Well, I'll wait till you take your novel and I'm just going to go late, sit in my room and read it. Like, fuck you.
Right.
Like,
he has no choice.
Right, exactly. But so he lets you read the book. We get this really quick scene of the sheriff going and checking with Libby, this guy who owns the Silver Creek Lodge. It's not a super important scene. It's just showing that the sheriff is doing his due diligence. In my notes, it's like the sheriff has a hunch and intends to follow it. God damn it. That's just all I put in the notes. So, but we see the kind of, I don't want to say superstition, the ritual that Paul has, the Dom Perignon. He smokes a cigarette. He comes up here every single time. He's a quiet, doesn't bother anybody. He's a nice guy. That is the only thing about Paul that, like, what are Paul's flaws? Like, I don't really know, is he too dumb to notice when murder is like 4 feet away from his face with her? Like, he doesn't really have any flaws. And I guess that, I don't know. Should he? I mean,
I don't think he's too dumb. I think it works the other way. I think it works in Annie's favor that she's just so good at drawing him in. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's not stupid and he's being nice, like, at the same time.
He's cocky too, to a degree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But he likes the attention. He feeds into that.
That's a good point. Because I was wondering, I was like, what is his downfall? Is it the fact that he just thinks that this woman is just like, oh, no, she's fine. And it's like, doesn't strike you as any, like, I think early on he has suspicions, but I would be a hell of a lot more suspicious than, like, I would be like, okay, dude, like, seriously, I don't give a fuck what you have to do. Like, send a smoke signal, shoot a flare, get me the fuck out of here. Like, I don't care what's going on.
Different time, though. I mean, like, all these true crime podcasts that I listen to, they're always like, oh, in 1971, 1980s, stranger danger was not that massive of a thing. People used to fucking, go to sleep with their doors unlocked. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're a lot more nervous of people than we were, a few decades ago. Probably not to the extent that Paul is being, but still.
Right. Well, and it's, I'm sure, Jess, you've heard about this, but the guy who broke into Stephen King's house when his wife was there and, like, threatened them with a bomb. And I don't remember why. I don't exactly know why he did it, but I know that Tabitha King was home and she just heard, like, I think she heard him come in through their living room or their kitchen or something. And they caught him and it was like radio parts. It was like something he was like, it wasn't even a bomb. But it's crazy because Stephen King's house is like, dude, I mean, you could just hop a fence and go knock on his door. Like, it's right there. Like, I'm
pretty sure that guy said like, I don't know. I feel like that guy said, like, that Stephen King, like, stole, like, shit from him, like his books and stuff. Like, that guy was, like, really fucking crazy.
Oh, it's secret window. It's all connected.
Of course, but that's Stephen.
It's all connected. No, I'm just kidding.
But that is like Stephen King to a T. Like that shit. Like that. It's all connected.
Well, and what's crazy is that house of his. I was reading an article in Rolling Stone that house is. It's kind of going to be like a writer's. Yeah, let me pull this up. It's in Rolling Stone really quick. Stephen King's house to become archive and writer's retreat. So I guess he spends a lot more time in Florida now, and the house will be. Stephen King has shared more information about the archive and retreat on Facebook. We're in the very beginning of planning the writer's retreat at the house next door, providing housing for up to 5 writers and residents at a time, he wrote.
Oh, so that's like literally my dream. I can't even. I would die to
that's so fucking cool.
I definitely write a book.
Oh, yeah. God, yeah. But like, how Stephen King and I are best friends. And I was #1 fan. Like, I would just write like fucking terrible shit. But yeah, this is where, Annie's read the book. She's feeding him the soup. She goes over, and first she's so nice about it. Well, who am I to criticize someone like you? She's so and what's really important is the cinematography here. The fact that it shows both of them, it's these really nice, warm kind of angles. And the second that she's like, it's the profanity, Paul. It's this weird, very close and upright angle looking at her because it empowers her. That angle makes her look so much bigger than she is. And her whole face almost takes up the screen. Like there's a little bit of room left on both the sides, but she looks like fucking Godzilla. She looks huge. I mean, I'm not saying she's fat. I mean, like, the fact that they make her look 10 feet tall in that scene. And I think that's where the cabin fever, the claustrophobia of the story starts to come into place, because we haven't really shown any shots of them super up close in the face, maybe a couple of times, but a lot of the stuff is it's very spacious. It shows the whole room. It shows, the outside, but that's one of the first times it really pulls in and shows her right there in his face. And it's like, holy shit. Like that. It's so invasive. And that's what I like about it. She fucking loses her shit about it. He's like, she talks about the profanity, how there's no nobility in it. And, he's like, oh, you don't like we were slum kids. Everybody talks like that. No, they don't. You think I go down to the chicken feed store and like, let me get your biggest cocksucking bag? And she's like, all right, let me write you one big bastard of a check. Like, I mean, she loses it, man. And this is the first indicator that something's not right. I mean, it's like 15 minutes into the fucking movie, like right off the rip, like we're seeing that something is just not quite right. It's like 20 something, 18 minutes into the movie where she's already flipping shit. And you're like, holy hell, this is insane. And she says she loves Paul. Which is, I mean, Jesus, dude, like pick a fucking mood. Like, God. I love, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I love like when she spills the soup, right? And it's like, look what you made me do. And it's like, it's not like this. She's got this kind of like thinking of like, I am not responsible for this. It's you that is responsible for making me feel this way. And for you, it's your fault for making me reach this point where I've done this act. And it's like, man, that is such a fucked up way to think. Like, you know what I mean? That is such a fucked up mentality.
Right.
Like, there are people like that. Like, that's a thing where it's like, why did you make me do this thing? Yeah. And I like that she leans into that like so early about something so like, I don't know. It's just so crazy.
Absolutely.
It's like the person who grabs your wrist and starts hitting you in the face with your own hand. Like, stop hitting yourself. Start hitting yourself. Like, you're doing this to me. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? But yeah, she says she loves Paul, and she kind of takes that back a step. She's like, I mean, your mind, it's just your creative mind, blah, blah, blah. Great scene with Buster and his deputy wife, Virginia. I love this. She's like, Virginia, when you're in this car, you're my deputy, not my wife. Well, this deputy would like to be at home under the covers with the sheriff.
Oh my God. I ship them. They're something else. Big fan. Big fan.
But, Buster finds the snap branch, which is he doesn't go out there with this like technology. He doesn't go out there with like, radar or so, something. He goes out there, he sees a snap branch. That's it. That's what tips him off. He's using nature and common sense to try and deduct what has happened to Paul. And she goes, it could have been the wind. It could have been the snow. He's like, yeah, it could have been a lot of things. It could have been Paul Sheldon. And I think that's enough for him to go, well, maybe I am out here wasting my time. But if he is right there, then I'll never forgive myself for not finding this thing. If it was right there in front of me. He does his due goddamn diligence, and I love that about him.
This scene made me realize how glass half empty I am, because I'm just like, yeah, literally, to what Virginia's saying, could have been anything. Could have been a fucking animal, for fuck's sake. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was not going to, like, if I was like Buster, like, I'm not trudging through that fucking snow based on like the 2% chances that it's Sheldon. Like, you saw how intense this fucking storm was.
Right, and it's crazy how close he gets to that car.
Yeah,
and he goes waist deep in the snow. It's like
amazing shot, by the way.
Yeah. Do you need help? No, I'm enjoying myself. It's so fucking good. Yeah, great shot is the reveal of the car. You really think he's out there? I hope not. If he is, he's dead. Like, ooh, and the elements of this is just like, I mean, there's no, if he hasn't been seen, and I mean, Jess, unsolved, disappearances expert, after 48 hours, that motherfucker's probably dead.
Oh,
like,
yeah, for sure. Unless they're kidnapped by a psychopath. Like, those are your options at that point.
Exactly. And like, how many
they're
people.
They're not just roaming out in the snow.
Right. Or and how many people even make it back if they're alive after 48 hours? Like most people who are, you hear these stories about these people who are gone for like a decade or like years. And it's like, what the fuck? And they were just being held captive by this lunatic in this house. It's like, holy shit. All that stuff is so interesting to me.
By the way, recommend looking up the case of Carrie Swenson. That shit is crazy. It's like she kidnapped by these like two mountain men. In the mountain, like I can't remember what state. Montana.
That'll be my Google rabbit hole that I go down before bed tonight. Thank you.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
We're like 20 minutes later, we're going to be like, what do you think about this, Jess? And she's like, huh? Like, what? No, and Annie drives right fucking past him. Oh, it's one of the first times in this movie you're like,
oh, it's perfect.
Oh man.
Also, just the way that's shot, dude. Like the way the camera kind of like rotates. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful.
Right. I feel like it's the sides of good and evil. It just shows you good, and as it shows, it just revolves into the evil.
Music changes too. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I love as soon as she comes home, it's great. She can't be fucked. She can't be bothered about Paul trying to leave. All she gives a fuck about is that she's got the new Misery book. That's all she cares about. I was the first one to get it down at the store. Oh, so the roads are open. Oh, well,
the ones in
town are. Yeah. It's like, oh, she immediately backpedals. She like retreats on what she's saying, and she tries to bullshit a little bit, but even what she's saying is kind of like, what? Like, I spoke to the head orthopedic surgeon. He said, you're fine. Well, in this new Misery book that I got, it's like, dude, you're
going right back to it. Yeah.
Right. Like, let go of it, man. It's his daughter's birthday. He's fucking worried. I love what she says, it's just like, it's like a visit from a dear old friend, and it's like, dude, it's my daughter's birthday. Shut the fuck up. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't give a fuck right now. Like, holy fuck. It's so crazy how she just, I think if you don't pay, and she's obviously an obsessed fan and she's a little off her rocker, but I think this is one of the most subtly indicating scenes of like, she doesn't give a fuck. Like she doesn't care at all.
But again, it's like, it's one of those things of like, I don't care about your situation. Look at how much I care about this thing that means so much to me. Like, what I mean? That whole element of it is great.
Well, and there's something I wanted to bring up too. Would this be simpler, or would this be more simpler? Word on it, I guess. Wouldn't it be more simple if the fact that she is reading could the new book Paul be working on just be the last Misery novel? Does it need to be this book about his childhood and slum kids, and then she picks up doesn't it seem a little like
so funny that you say that? Yeah,
it's not convoluted, and it doesn't take me out of anything.
It confused the fuck out of me at the start. Like the first time I saw it, I was like, I'm confused as hell.
And I hadn't watched the movie in forever when I or read the book, and when I rewatched it, I kept thinking that the manuscript was the Misery novel. But then I kept remembering the swearing. I'm like, no, that doesn't make sense though. And I was like confused. I'm like, oh, that's right. Misery was published, and then he was writing. And in the actual like book, like his new novel has like a name and a whole like basic plot they tell you about and stuff. But it is confusing. And I think probably the only reason they do it the way they do it is because if the manuscript was Misery dying, she'd just burn the manuscript and, you know what I mean? Like it never happened, as opposed to him having to write Misery coming back from the dead.
No,
which
exactly.
is like,
I had the same issue because like the way I understood this movie for years before I watched it, it was like, oh, okay, this crazy fangirl kidnaps a writer and makes him rewrite. Oh, sorry. Write a new book to her liking. And that's all I kind of knew. And I was like, that's why I was like super confused that there was actually 2 publications involved. I was like, wait, what? That was not really my understanding.
The only thing that I can take away from it is the fact of like, hey, this is how crazy she is. That she is trying to have him rewrite a final novel. Like she is trying to fight like something that is literally almost written in stone. Like here it is, she's dead. And like that's her level of denial about it. But then at the same time, the only thing that I can really take away from it is she is, with making Paul burn the Slum Kids book, she's making him almost like destroy his identity. Like, here is this thing that you wanted to get away from, and it's about you, and it's a personal story, and you have to destroy this so you can be free of all these awful things about yourself. And I think that part of it is that if he like, I don't know. Look, I think I like it because it's necessary in the fact of like, we need to show her making him burn this book to be like, you're never going to be free of this, because the new Misery book wouldn't be like littered with profanity and shit, like it would be very odd. So like, I think that in a way, I like it because it's kind of she as her representing, the negative minority of fandom, of them forcing the course correction of like, no, you will do this and this only, and you will not branch out from this because this is what we want you to do. And that's the only thing I can really take away from it. It's not absolutely necessary. I think I would be fine. I think I'd like to see it a little bit more streamlined, but at the same time, like, to me, it wasn't convoluted. It wasn't very confusing. And I was like, oh, okay, so he wrote this one book and it's not out yet. But it did seem maybe they just needed a little bit more time. They're like, all right, we'll have this book and then, we'll have this other book,
Just drag it out a little longer. Before
right, yeah.
Which Misery's dead.
Right. And I don't blame him. This movie's like 20 minutes long. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, she comes home. She starts gushing over the book, all this shit. And I don't give one shit about this whole pig scene except for the whole part where she's like, what's that one painting that Dago did? And he's like, the Sistine Chapel.
What the fuck? Like, the way she spits out Dago, and like she like doesn't even. She's so proper and precise, and then she's kind of like got this like old person like thinking of like, oh yeah, it's fine to call them Dagos. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's fucked.
It's such a simple little thing. It's one
thing.
Little sentence, but it's like, ooh.
That was not nice of you, Annie Wilkes.
Oh, Annie, I see what's going on here.
There is just something funny about calling Sonny Corleone, like calling somebody a Dago in front of Sonny Corleone. Like, I don't know what. It just kind of cracked me up, man. But I think it shows like she is, she's conniving, and she is book smart to an extent, and she is very street smart to an extent, but socially she is like mentally challenged.
She's ignorant.
She's ignorant. She's dumb. I mean, she's just like the way she mispronounces stuff. She calls him Dago and shit. And it's like, I don't know, there is something, it adds a unique flavor to her that's just like, you uncultured swine. Like, there's something like so stupid about her. I do like this pig though. It is kind of cute. Like, I kind of like,
I always like an animal as long as, it doesn't get killed.
The pig's real name is Misery.
Is it really?
IRL, is it really?
Yeah, in real life. Yeah.
That's adorable.
That's awesome.
Of course it is.
I gotta admit, it's a cute pig. I was looking at it like, oh, like I kind of want to pet you.
Yeah, this whole, I mean, like the way, like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know what Rob Reiner and Stephen King are trying to get across with her, like acting like the pig, but I enjoyed it.
Well, and dude, it's one of the main reasons why like I don't eat a lot of pork is like, A, it's really not good for you, but at the same time, like pigs are incredibly smart. Like, they're very smart animals. Like, I feel bad eating them. Like, this thing's as smart as a dog. Would I eat a dog? Like, I don't think I feel too good about that. Like,
pigs are smarter than dogs. Pigs are one of the. Didn't you guys read Animal Farm? Like, pigs are real fucking smart, guys.
Yeah,
that's like a true. Animal Farm is not like messing around. That like those are actual like intelligence levels of animals. Like, pigs are really, really, really smart.
Right, yeah,
like,
which is
smart.
Which is why I stopped eating pork and now I just eat human beings. That's why.
Yeah, because pigs are smarter than humans, so that's the right choice that you made.
Right. It just makes so much sense. Zohab's over there like licking pork chops off his fingers. Like, oh, I'm sorry, what?
No, actually, I'm weirdly in the same camp as you, Colin. Like, I don't eat pigs. I mean, like, I don't eat pork or anything, or bacon either. Like, not because I don't know. I think it's kind of like to do with upbringing as well. Like, it was a bit of a religious thing for us.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, like, I'm not overly religious, neither is my family, so we can eat it. But it's more like, yeah, It's not really a thing for me.
Right. Yeah. Actually, I take that back. Every once in a while, we'll have like breakfast sausages, but I'm still like, I need to eat turkey sausage. What am I doing with my life? I have to like go over there and squeeze the grease out of the sausages. I'm like, oh my God, like my arteries are clogging right now. And in this scene, it's a weird transition too, because we see her with the pig, and then it immediately cuts to her kind of monologuing in this window. It's very odd. It shows her, talking about when her husband left, and it's good. I like it. It's good character build. It's her just giving a little bit of. What's hilarious is it's a little bit of monologuing. Maybe sometimes it doesn't really feel exposition-y. It just kind of feels like a kind of. It almost seems kind of drawn out. But the whole time you're like, why is she just sitting here talking to him? And she talks about her husband being gone. It was very hard for her. And that's when she got into the misery books. And then he just pulls the fucking bedpan piss bucket out. And he's like, here you go. Dude, that is fucking hilarious.
But there's a line here that I don't want to go past. Like after she talks about the husband, she says, when my husband left me, I wasn't prepared. It wasn't an easy time. And then you get the line, for a while, I thought I might go crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fact that you think you're past that, like, you know what I mean? The fact that you reached the stage of like, oh man, I might go crazy here, but then you realize that like, no, I'm over it. But really, you're not, are you, Annie? You're not really over it, are you?
It's kind of crazy looking at Lizzie Kaplan, who plays Annie Wilkes in Castle Rock, and I'm like, I would smash Lizzie Kaplan.
So
there's no way I'd get my dick anywhere near her fucking
beautiful woman.
Yeah, I was like, holy shit.
I'm so curious. I guess I'll have to watch a season of Castle Rock just out of
for
curiosity.
A second there, I'm sorry. You were like, I'm so curious.
No.
Like, about what?
Not about that.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I can't blame you.
If I need to imagine, I'm sure I can, but I'm all set.
As the only single one on this podcast, I would want to be with Lizzie Kaplan for sure.
I like you're like, I'd smash Lizzie Kaplan. I'm like, just thinking about it. And so Hub's like, I'd like to just be with her. He's like
take
so
her out to
kind.
dinner, ask her what her
And
feelings
here we
are.
are, like so crass. Okay.
Oh man, was she in Mean Girls? Was she the one who was talking about made out of your mother's chest hair or something?
No, she wasn't.
No.
Oh no, yeah, she was.
Oh, was she?
Yep, she was. She was the friend.
Yeah, that's right.
The frumpy
That's
friend.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I like. Did you guys ever watch Party Down?
No, heard of it.
Okay,
I know
Party
what
Down
you're
was like
talking
a comedy
about.
that ran for like 2 seasons, and it was like Adam Scott and like Lizzie Kaplan. They basically play like wannabe actors in LA, so they're working for a catering company because obviously they can't get jobs as actors. Like Ken Marino's in it. It's really funny. You should check it out.
I really, really like Adam Scott. She was in Cloverfield
Same.
though. Like Cloverfield. What was he? Yeah,
Hot Tub Time Machine is what made me fall. Yeah, she's John Cusack's like 80s girlfriend, I guess.
The Interview.
I never saw that.
Not great.
Well, anyways, back to this fucking movie. We literally like it was like skipping rocks in a pond. We hit like 6 movies and somehow made it back to dry land with misery.
Welcome back to Midnight Double Feature, Jess. This is what we do here.
Welcome back. I've listened. I've heard.
So, she said she was lonely. Her husband left her. She's gonna go crazy. I love just the visual gag of her like kind of sloshing around the piss and watching his eyes. Like, can you be careful with that? Like, it's really good.
By the way, when I broke my leg, I had to piss in those things as well. So, like, I had,
my
like,
God, back to the amusement park accident. Comes full circle.
I have like flashbacks, dude, of like that shit and the bedpan, like in the hospital.
Oh God,
dude, trying to take a shit at home with a dislocated knee is like one leg completely stretched out. You're like, oh my God, this is awful.
God, this sounds terrible.
Oh, it was.
All of this sounds awful.
It was fucking the worst.
Jess, we gave you the best content.
Yeah, right.
You don't even know. This is a dream.
As soon as Annie reads about Misery's death, she storms in Paul's room and she assaults him verbally and physically. He attempts to explain, but she's not having any of that shit. Slept away. She slept away.
Yeah.
Like, dude, amazing close up on her. Really, really, really good. Like, I love this whole, and he's just, hey, a lot of women died during childbirth. It was very, typical, nothing happened to her. She just slipped away. No, you murdered her. You murdered her. And she says, I thought you were good, Paul, but you're not good. You're just another lying old dirty birdie. And I think I better not be around you for a while. And the jig is fun.
I was going to say, she's like Padme Skywalker just, lost the will to live.
Right, yeah.
Woo, here we go. Here we go.
Oh, God. I can smell the low self-esteem and body odor from the emails from Star Wars fans we're gonna get. This is where the jig is up. I mean, Annie's just like, hey, I didn't tell anybody. I didn't call doctors. I didn't call your agent. I didn't call your family. Nobody knows you're up here, and you better hope nothing happens to me, because if I die, you die. Like,
yeah.
Yep.
Terrifying, man. That's awful.
This is when he realizes he's in a lot of trouble. Before he was just like, huh.
Yeah.
Now he's like, ooh, like
right.
this is a bad scenario.
Right. Before he was like,
she's a little weird, but it's 1990. I think I'm going to get out safe.
Yeah. And then it's
now
like,
he knows.
I have some bad intentions.
Right. Because
now it's getting real dicey.
Well, and it's been very civil up to this point. Everybody's just trying to get along. And now you know that Paul, because this seems like the point where you go, fuck you, you're crazy, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. And it's like, no, because he has to play the game, like, or else he's dead. It's so interesting because, like, in your mind, you're going like, dude, the civility is over with now. Like, this kindness and all this shit, but it's like, no, he has to go along with this game. And that's what's so smart about what he does here. And I love him for it. I love Paul Sheldon for the way he plays her and all of this shit.
Well, there's two things.
Brilliant.
No, it is brilliant. There's two things that I really bump up to in this movie, right? And like one of them's coming up, but one is kind of like here when she like tells him that, like, nobody's coming for you, the doctor's not your agent. In this situation, I'd immediately start to use her psychology against her. Like, I'd start to be like, you are so in love with like my writing and with me, and you're infatuated with me. I'd kind of like use that to my advantage immediately. And like, I feel like Paul takes a little while to start doing that, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like it takes him a little bit to start kind of like, schmoozing her a little bit, if that makes sense.
Right. He's definitely buttering up her biscuit at some point.
Exactly. And I feel like it takes him a little bit too much time. That's just me.
Part of me watching this now, I would love to see an ending where Paul just takes a bunch of the Novril and he's like, you have to take me to the hospital now. Like, why? Because I just took a bunch of Novril and I'm going to overdose. And she's like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Like, what do I do? Say,
that'd be cool. Yeah.
Right. What do I do? Like, oh, God, I'd love to see him get the upper. Dude, the ending of this movie, like, God, I wouldn't fucking come in my pants.
I guarantee you she would, like, start pumping his stomach. Like, she's...
Right. She would do something. Yeah, she would do something. I was just thinking about that. Annie drives off and Paul attempts to leave to his bed. Ultimately, it doesn't really make him much farther than the floor. The importance of this scene, I feel like, is to show that Paul is actively trying to escape. He's like, listen, I don't care if I have literally one arm and two legs tied behind my back. I'm fucking leaving. But it doesn't matter because she's locked him in his room. So there's no way, even if he could walk, like, what is he going to do? The next morning, Annie helps Paul back into his bed, and she tells him she has a big surprise for him. I love this whole thing. I understand my mind is cluttered. I can admit that. She's like, I couldn't even remember all the stuff they were asking me on the witness stand in Denver. And his look on his face is like, the fuck? Like,
yes. I love it.
It's so good, dude. It's like, it's almost comedic to look on his face like, huh? Like, he's so lost. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Annie says God has delivered Paul unto her so she can show him the way. I don't ever want to hear that sentence come from somebody's mouth. Like, there is nothing good that can end with that. It's either going to be an awkward 30-minute conversation with me trying to get away from you in a parking lot and get into my car because you're some Jehovah's Witness that has stopped me. Or you've captured me in a house and you're going to fucking hobble my legs.
Those are 100% the only two options. You're correct, too. Like, that's it.
Dude, there's a couple of Mormons always around our apartment complex, and like I try to shoo them off with a broom and then just come back. No, they're really very nice people, but like they stop us. We have like a crock pot in our arms. We have a bunch of shit. We're coming back from like a family thing, and they're like, "Oh, hey, what's going on?" Yeah, blah blah. And I was just like, "Yeah, we're Jewish," and they're like, "Oh, okay, that's interesting." And it was the only way to like deactivate them. And I was like, "See ya, bye."
Just tell them you're Jewish. Like, that's the only option.
I was like I would. I mean, and I literally said, I was like, it sounds wonderful. It's like offering a vegetarian a steak. I'm sure that's nice, but I just can't. You know, I was like, it sounds nice. But she says, like, yeah, God delivered him, show him the way. She then produces a grill with his new novel as the main course. Speaking of steaks, she tells Paul that he needs to burn his book. He tries to dissuade her, telling her that there's dozens of copies of it, and she calls his bluff, saying that he never makes any copies due to superstition. I love the back and forth here. He's like, I love. He's what does she say? She's like, he's like, dozens of copies of this have already been made. It doesn't matter. She goes, then light the match. She goes, doesn't matter either way, Annie. She goes, as you've indicated, light the match, Paul. Like, ooh.
It's so good because he's trying so hard to do what he's doing, to like put out the fire in like kind of calm her, but to get what he wants, like to manipulate her. And he can't because she is his number one fan. So she knows his superstitions. Like she like quotes like whatever TV show he said it on, whatever time.
Yeah.
And this is like this crazy thing where he's like, okay, Annie, but it's no big deal. I have all these copies. All these people have them. And she knows he doesn't. And there's nothing he can do because he has said it. And she's that obsessed with him that she knows this one thing he said one time on a TV show. Like it's probably not even on his Wikipedia page.
Hey, Jess, remember that time I fucking came over to Boston and I met you guys' podcasters, and I was like, hey, guys, I've been listening to you guys' podcast for like 2 or 3 years.
What a time.
You guys were like,
I hope I don't get murdered.
This fucking kid is like a fucking Annie Wilkes type, isn't he?
You were like, here, come into my car. Let's go back to my place.
I don't know how to drive on the wrong side of the road, but yeah.
But yeah, so, she goes on, he's like, listen, no one will ever have to know about the book. What does she say? As long as it does exist, your mind will never be free. And he fucking, she threatens him with the lighter fluid at first. She's kind of tossing it on the bed. And I was like, that is terrifying. That is what scares the fuck out of me.
Yeah.
Yes. It's so nonchalant. And it's like, ooh, like lighter fluid's getting a little close. But Paul, he begrudgingly lights the match and his newest book goes up in flames all around the room.
This must be so devastating. Like, I can't even imagine because, like, and I'm sure I've said it 8 zillion times on, like, the LSG Media podcast, but like, I was a creative writing major when I started college. Like, my whole life, like, that's all I've ever wanted to do is like write a book. And I've written a million things. And to lose something, especially a novel, which is almost like impossible to write. Like if I have a short story and I lose it, I like would cry for like 3 days.
There's no save backup file.
No, like, and that to me is like, I can understand like the absolute like devastation of this. It is like painful to watch because I cannot imagine writing an entire novel because you can't recreate something. You can try and maybe it comes out better, maybe it comes out worse, but you can never recreate something like that. And like, that's like, that is like, especially for an author, for someone like Paul, who's finally writing his first book that's different. Like this is definitely like emotional, like torture. Like it is really, really bad. Like I really feel for him in this moment. It is pretty terrible.
Isn't that an oogie mess?
Right. Well, and they're always talking about like kill your darlings, and this is just like, oh my god, this is like it's like losing a dad. Like I mean, not to that extent, but like losing this thing that will never come back. To him, it's like losing a kid. It's like, holy shit, here's this thing that I had that's like, oh my god, and like you said, you might get it back. Maybe you remember the plot points, maybe you remember the story from beginning to end, but you'll never get those little details right ever again. Like you might even remember most of them.
Have you guys ever lost a podcast?
I don't. Maybe in the early days. I think I don't think we really ever lost one, did we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
No, we have. I'm telling you right now, Colin, we have no feature presentation episodes, but the upcoming attractions. Holy fuck! And you know why? I
listened to one where you talked about how you lost it, like a recent one, right?
Yeah, it was a recent
I feel
one.
like I just heard it. Actually, now that you mention it, I just listened to that.
Yeah, because you know why? I thought I'd saved my shit, and then like I deleted it, and then like I saved over that fucking file. And it was gone.
No.
And I was like to Matthew, I was like, oh my God, Matthew, I'm so sorry. Like, this is fucking gone. But you know what? Those ones are kind of like easy to do because it's just, like bullshit news topics and like trailers and stuff, and we can cut shit out. If it was one of these podcasts, dude, where we're like covering a movie, then I'd be like, okay, I'm done. I'm done with podcasting forever. Like, see you later.
Right. Again,
it's a nightmare.
We would we get Jess back on. We go from beginning to end, and we get the story, but we never have that camaraderie back. We'd never have that
It would
same
feel so staged. Yeah,
And
exactly.
Yes, trying to repeat things and tell the same joke, like because we've had moments in podcasts where like you forget to hit record, and it's like I'm like, what jokes did I tell? Like so I can go back and like tell them again. But like we lost a whole chunk of like a Harlow Falls season, and we had to literally re-record an entire ending. And because of like the nature of like that podcast, it came out completely different.
Yeah.
Like it ended completely different than the original ending. And it's so crazy to think of something like that. Like, and the original ending is lost forever. And like, we know it, but no one else ever will. Cause when you're redoing like a creative thing, like sometimes it just takes a different route.
absolutely.
And like stuff like that is like, I mean, and that's like a podcast. Like we're kind of doing it for fun.
Y'all got me over here checking my fucking recording right now. I was like, just click over here, make sure everything's still going.
It's funny, man.
It definitely says it's recording. I'm watching.
It's funny, man, because like after 2 years, like you're still kind of like learning the technical ropes of this this whole podcasting thing, and we're still fucking up. Like, you know what I mean? Like no one's it's kind of like that thing from The Office, like po body's nerfect.
This is true.
But yeah, so he lights the book on fire. I love that Annie has to kind of pry the matches away from Paul. Like he's kind of thinking about I'm just going to do it. Just like light himself on fire. You can tell he's just like, he's dead inside, but she has to like open his hand up to pull the matches away. Like I love that little detail. And but yeah, the whole book goes up in flames. I think we also see Buster flying around in the helicopter. Yes. We see that he's still, he's doing it.
I want to talk about this.
Do it.
This is my other big sort of like, not really a big issue, but kind of like a logical thing. So he's flying around in this helicopter looking for this missing famous writer. And he says to the pilot, that's a Stedman place up there. And then he points over to the Wilkes farm. He's like, the only other place up there is the Wilkes farm. As the sheriff, do you not know that in your kind of like precinct or whatever the fuck you're looking after here, that there is a, somewhat convicted, not really convicted criminal who'd murdered 5 babies? Like, is that not a thing where you'd just be like, oh, okay, I'm going to go check out the Wilkes farm because there's a potentially dangerous individual here who may have somewhat had something to do with like foul play with this like famous author? I don't know. That was just something that I really bumped up against.
In general, they would maybe check everywhere if they really believed he was alive somewhere.
I think that, that's the due diligence to check everywhere. But 2 things is that A, she's a recluse, like she doesn't even have a phone. But B, I mean, he has to go to the library later on to even read about that shit. So it's is she not, does he not know any of that stuff? Because A, he hasn't had, I mean, why would he have to look it up? But then B, I mean, she's so off the radar that I don't think there hasn't been any reason for him to look that up yet. So it is right there. And it's just kind of like, maybe you should hey, do a quick Google. Just do a Google. Like just hit that little search real quick and check out Annie Wilkes.
Take your smartphone, type in Annie Wilkes, Colorado.
Yeah. He's like, what? Huh? Like trying to figure it out. So Annie gives Paul his novel, and he kind of stops and he stashes them away instead of taking them. We see the wheels in motion. Paul is starting to, he's like, I got to do something. I can't just sit here. She's gonna fucking kill me. Like I've got to start doing something. And I like, he stashes them away and then he takes the fork and cuts the thing into the mattress and stashes them away them. And I was like, that's kind of weird. I feel like you could have just done that to begin with. I don't know why we had to show him like stashing him away and then literally have a scene right after of him cutting. You see what I mean? It's like that's kind of redundant. I don't know. It's kind of odd, but I mean, it's just a small nitpick.
I wish they'd gone straight to because I like the idea that he cuts open the bed and puts it in as opposed to just under the mattress. But like we could have just led with that. We didn't need those.
Because it's like, no, this is like, I'm saving nuts for the winter type shit. Like he's just like stashing them away. The next day, Annie gets Paul into a wheelchair and she surprises him with his new studio. With it, she expects Paul to revive misery with a new brilliant novel, much to Paul's dismay. I love that. He's like, misery's return? He's like, you expect me to just whip something up? And she's like, I expect nothing more than your best. It'll be a novel in my honor. And he's like, some people might consider this an oddball situation. Like, I love he's kind of trying to address it, but at the same time, he has to have some kind of candor about it. Like, he can't just come out and be the way that Paul Sheldon would be like, what are you, fucking nuts? Like, he kind of has to play to her hand a little bit.
But like, look at what she also says about like misery here. Like when he's like, he questions the title. She says, I know you didn't mean it when you killed her and now you'll make it right. Like, what? Like the author didn't mean to kill her? What? Make it right?
Isn't like a
what
TV
is right?
show where an actor's like, no, thank you. I want more money. Like,
Right.
it's a book. He
Oh,
wanted to kill her.
Well, and the little touch I like is the, not keyboard, Jesus Christ, typewriter.
Typewriter.
The typewriter she gets him is missing an N key, which if you read On Writing by Stephen King, his typewriter was missing an N key, the first one he got. I was like, I thought it was really fucking cool.
that's awesome.
Love it. In the book, it's the same thing. I love that detail. And in the book, like there are sections of like Misery's Return, and they're written like in a different font, like a typewriter font, and every N is like handwritten in the book. Like you should like look at it if you've never seen it. And so in the book, like other letters fall off over time. So by the time he's finished with the book, there's like no N, there's no T, and there's another letter that's like missing. And it's just so cool. Like I actually like went like, so I own the book, obviously. I just took it like off my shelf, so I have it in front of me. But it's just so cool to see because it's all written this typewriter font and all the N's are like handwritten in. Like,
that's awesome.
I don't know.
There is something kind of terrifying about that of like first you're missing an N and then another letter goes and another letter goes.
And these are letters you use all the time.
Right.
Right. Well, because I think in the novel, I mean, not to jump too far ahead, once she hits the leg, she starts hitting other shit, right? She starts like kind of taking other body parts from what I've read. Like I think she fucks up more shit than just his leg. Am I right on that or am I like way off?
She tries to keep him disabled. The leg thing is like the big one though.
Right. So it's like it's kind of symbolic of the typewriter. It's like as time goes on, the wear and tear is just everything is falling apart. Like, like it's almost like it's just keeping the motor going, even as like you're fucking losing like headlights and an axle and like all the shit. Like the motor just keeps going. There's something so terrifying about just being hell bent on that one thing.
I was thinking about like, I mean, like the letter N is used just so commonly, you know, it's not like the letter fucking Z where like, I mean, come on, like how many fucking words start with the letter Z? Am I right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
I couldn't spell my fucking name without an N. I'd be Collie. But she, and I love Paul's like, it's two of the favorite letters in my favorite, two of the letters in my favorant nurse's name. She's like,
so good.
Dude, you goof. Did I do good? Like, and she's so, God, you want it so, like she's
you want to be able to like her.
Right.
You want her to not be a bad person.
Oh, it sucks ass, man. It's like,
that's
God,
great acting.
Yeah, she could be so good. Like at first I didn't like it. I was like, she's kind of dumb. And I was like, no, actually Annie Wilkes is kind of dumb.
She's endearing.
Like Kathy Bates is smart as fuck. Annie Wilkes is the dumb one. But I love Paul's talking about the paper smudges and he asked for her to get some new paper. The detail of the fact that he types it out in front of her, smudges it, and she has to touch it.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of like the people who are like, I don't think that's hot. And they have to touch it. Like, what are you, fucking stupid? I just said it's hot. Like the people in a restaurant who are like, hey, it's a hot plate. And they grab the plate and go, ooh. And it's like, yeah, it's crazy how that works, isn't it? It's a hot plate. Like, I worked in a restaurant. I had a PTSD Vietnam restaurant flashback for a second. I was like, I need hot food hands. I'm like, I'm like, wake up in the middle of the night, like need to smoke a cigarette. I'm like sweaty.
But that detail, dude, like also kind of like tells you, although she loves Paul, she still has this level of distrust. Like, you know what I mean? She's like, I have to confirm this my fucking self.
Right.
Like, as dumb as she is, as you just said, like she's still very wary that this guy is a prisoner.
But Paul is so smart here too that he immediately knows. So she's bought the most expensive paper, and he immediately can think on his feet quick enough to be like, how do I get her out of here?
Sure.
Like, how do I delay this? And he's like, this paper will smudge. Like, because if he's lying, he's fucked if she finds out.
Right. And
like
I
that
love
quick thought on his feet in that he's not lying. That's actually true I really like that about Paul. Like that he's always thinking about, like, he can think very quickly on his feet in these situations.
Right.
No pun intended about the on his feet thing.
I love the whole thing of him being like, you know, and she's like, oh, so it does, or what does she say? She goes, but mine's the most expensive one. How can it be wrong? You know, and she's like, you idiot, just because it's the most expensive thing doesn't make it the right thing. Like, that's, again, it's so ignorant. Well, and I love it. She starts flipping out. He's like, Annie, like, you know, what's wrong? You know, and he's buttering her biscuit. He's saying, like, I want you to be in on everything about this book, you know, and because he knows what's about to happen. She's about to fucking lose her goddamn mind. I love that. This paper smudges, Annie. You didn't get the right paper, Annie. Like, dude, the close up on her is just, it's scary. It's fucking terrifying. Like, there's just something about
stupid paper, but you just better start showing me a little more appreciation around here, Mr. Man.
Yes.
Hits him in the legs like fuck. So yeah, she flies off the handle. She goes and she gets the paper. With her gone, Paul finds a bobby pin on the floor, which he uses to unlock his cell door, as I like to put it. He finally sees the other parts of the house and sees that the phone was never even in working order the entire time. I love that. You crazy bitch. Like, and it's a great analogy for Annie as a person. Functional on the outside, totally fucked up on the inside. Like, right, exactly. Hollow. And you know, the rest of the house is just, it's odd. It's weird. It's an old house. It's not what you would think this
old lady house.
Right. It's really, really odd. And I think it just shows that traditional kind of value that she has about stuff.
Looks like my grandmother's house.
Right.
Exactly. It's like a grandma house.
Yeah.
Right.
It really is.
You know, Paul is kind of, you know, he's exploring the house. He accidentally knocks down the ceramic penguin. Oh, that's going to come back.
This moment like sticks out to me more than anything in this movie. I don't know why, but that like moment of him knocking that thing over and putting it back, like backwards. And I'm always like, you fucking idiot. Can't you tell that penguin is facing the wrong way?
Right. And it drives me crazy because when he gets the novel, he grabs the one up top and then he faces them back up to make it look like he hasn't taken one. And I'm like, dude,
smart there, but he doesn't notice the stupid penguin. Oh,
right. Oh, you beautiful fool.
Yeah, right.
So, you know, he's exploring the house. You know, all this shit is going to come back later. He finds this Annie's supply closet. He gets the novel. You know, he tries to escape through the kitchen. It's unsuccessful. He sees the knife. That's going to come back later. It's a harrowing race back to his room as Annie arrives home to find Paul dripping with perspiration in his room. He says he's been sitting here in pain and asked Annie to make his pain go away. I love the shot of them with their keys, each one with their key, locking and unlocking. Oh, it's so good. Yeah, the way he, like, right as she opens the door, he's like, oh, fuck. And he tries to cover up the novel. And the way he plays it is great. She's like, Paul, what have you been doing? You know damn well what I've been doing. Like, the indignance is what seals it. She's like, wow, he's really pissed about this. And she buys it. You know, it just breaks my heart to see you like this. You know, I want my pain to go away. Help my pain to go away. He's, you know, I think that he's playing to her sensibility. She's a nurse, which means at some point she probably did give a shit about kind of helping some people. I don't know. But then at the same degree,
yeah.
Right. But I'm Paul Sheldon and I'm asking for your help. It's like she can't turn it away. She can't possibly turn that away. And I fucking love that. And again, she comes back a totally different person. You know, you must be so mad at me. Tell the truth now. And he's like, well, who doesn't let off a little steam once in a while? I'm like, you crazy bitch. So I think right now, I'd say we're probably about the halfway point. What do you guys say about taking a break, refilling our bladders, emptying our drinks? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's on my mind.
Awesome. Guys, we'll be right back with the rest of our coverage of Misery. Good
morning, afternoon, afternoon, and evening, wherever the hell you are. Thanks so much for listening to this episode, guys. Just while we're taking a quick break here, I am going to plug some shit. No, it's not advertising. It's nothing paid. It's basically just kind of self-masturbatory stuff. Basically, follow us. Follow us on our socials. We have 2 pages on Facebook called Midnight Double Feature, obviously, and then we have our main group, which is called The After Party, which is fantastic. Our community loves to engage there, and that's our main way to communicate with our audience. Please follow The After Party. That's a fantastic page. And please follow us on Instagram, which is at Midnight Double Feature, and Twitter, which is at MDF Pod. You can listen to us anywhere on iTunes, anywhere on Spotify, on YouTube, wherever. And if there's no way that you can listen to us on your device, please let us know by getting in touch with us. You can do that by sending us an email, which is midnightdoublefeature@gmail.com. Now, last but certainly not least, please remember to rate and review us on iTunes. We would love to get your guys' feedback, whether it's positive or negative. Just please remember to, put a star and let us know in your little speech bubble thingy what you think of us and where we can improve. That would be fantastic. Guys, thank you so much for listening to my little rant here, and back to the show, I guess. See you later.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back. Thanks for staying late, hanging in for the second part of our misery coverage, because we are freshly squeezed, as we like to say around here. Our bladders are empty, our drinks are full, and we're locked and loaded and ready to crank right back into this shit. So where we kind of left off, basically Paul's escaped. He's gotten this novel. He's asking Annie for, make his pain go away. She gives him the notepad. What I like about that, and we didn't mention that on, at the end of this, is every little thing she gives him is like a tool. Everything. She gives him the fork. He uses it to make a little drug cozy. She gives him the notepad. He uses the notepad to slip the drugs in. I was like, holy shit! This guy's so resourceful. I think that's just something I wanted to note.
It's like Andy Dufresne.
Right, exactly. Meanwhile, on the outside world, the search for Paul is still going on. It's intensifying. They're flying around until his car is finally found, and he is presumed dead by the authorities. Buster, however, is totally unconvinced due to the pry marks on the door, which is very fucking obvious. By the way, did nobody else catch that? The cop. The guy doing the talking to the press is like, well, obviously he's been dragged off by some type of large Yeti creature and raped and murdered. He's been eaten at this point for sure. It's like, holy shit, dude, this guy just
Have you ever heard of Bigfoot? That's what happened here, clearly.
Have you ever heard of the Bigfoot or his albino cousin, the Yeti?
That damn Sasquatch.
Right. But yeah, basically, this is where, he sees the pry marks on the door, and he realizes, he's like, hey, listen, he straight up says, he's like, this guy's not dead. There's no way. There's no way that unless a fucking Wolverine came and pried the door open and dragged him off to their nest, there's no way he's fucking dead.
This is why we love Buster. He's watched a lot of Dateline. He knows what's up.
Right, exactly. Virginia just makes him watch all this shit, and he's like, I picked up a thing or two.
You don't think they sit at home and watch Dateline? They do.
Well, I think he's seen every fucking situation because he's 100 years old.
He's like, this happened back in 1950 when that crazy person kidnapped a famous person that crashed their car. Crazy. What a world.
This happened during the time of the Civil War that I firsthand experienced.
And basically, like I said, he knows that there's no fucking way that Paul's dead. And as they're, meanwhile, going back to where Annie is at, I like this bouncing back and forth. Really, the only kind of outside world view we get is through Buster and Virginia, and I really like that. It just shows that people haven't forgotten about Paul. They know, I really, really dig that. And but Paul basically gets to work on the novel. And he's kind of staring at the thing what the fuck am I going to write? He's just kind of looking at it what the hell am I going to do? But first he makes this, I like to call this his roofie colada that he makes for Annie. You know, he's starting to put the pills in a little pouch, and he's prepping, he's getting ready. He's playing, I love this. He's playing both sides of this. He's like, I've got to keep her at bay just long enough for me to get this thing, get this thing rolling. And he gets cracking on the novel. In the meantime. But, however, Annie tells him that it isn't up to par and I'll have to start over again. This whole shit about the Rocket Man serials, like that whole,
I love this scene.
Oh God, the way he corrects her. He's like, yeah, they called him, she's like, I was watching one of the chapter plays. Oh, they called him serials. I know that, Mr. Man. Like, holy shit. No, cliffhangers. That's what he says. And she just flips shit. But like, this is exactly, I can't remember which one of you mentioned it, but she does not fucking forget anything. She remembers everybody who has crossed her. And this is something where it's like, 3-4 decades ago that she remembers. And then she's like, the unjust that she feels at that. It's like what
how
the
people
fuck?
feel about the finale of Lost. Like, I understand, Just kidding.
I'm surprised you didn't say Game of Thrones, Jess.
I can't. I've already talked so much shit about Game of Thrones. I'm like trying to keep it cool. No, but this, I love the serial thing. I love how she freaks out. I love that she's still thinking about this thing from her childhood that she cannot move past. Like, we've all been there deep down.
Well,
but we
and
don't kill people over it.
The hilarious part is, she goes to this whole thing. They cheated us. This isn't fair. He didn't get out of the cock-a-doodie car. And he's like, well, they always did that. And I think he goes to say cliffhangers. He's like, chapter plays.
Chapter plays.
Like,
I love it.
He like straight up has to just that need to survive. He's like, I've got to just bend to her will.
I love what she says after that though. Like, let me read this, right? So she says, but not you, not with my misery. Remember, Ian did ride for Dr. Cleary at the end of the last book, but his horse fell jumping that fence and Ian broke his shoulder and his ribs and lay there all night in the ditch, so he never reached the doctor. So there couldn't have been any, quote, experimental blood transfusion that saved her life. Misery was buried in the ground at the end, Paul. So you'll have to start there. What the fuck? Like,
Jesus.
Write it yourself, bitch.
Right. It's fucking crazy. I mean, because it sounds like crap anyways. Experimental blood
like
transfusion.
It sounds
oh
like
my
garbage.
God.
Garbage.
It just sounds like the worst fan fiction ever written. But
season 8 of Game of Thrones. No, just kidding.
But
You just really gave me that layup there.
I know. I was waiting for some kind of payoff, but yeah, you just did it. Thank you.
But yeah, he gets to Kraken, starts from scratch all over again. Annie loves the new direction Paul is taking, even though it sounds like complete and total fan fiction fucking garbage.
Oh my God,
and
such garbage.
Right. Dude, how, and the crazy part is she starts going on about how, it was that bee sting that put her in the coma, and they realized that the same thing had happened to Lady Evelyn Hyde, and that the gravekeeper Wilkes realized that she must have been born of nobility. Ever since I started the books, I knew that she had to be born of nobility, and it's like, no, you crazy bitch, like, you did not know she was not born of nobility. He is literally writing this to just facilitate your fucked up needs. Right. Like, holy shit, just how fucking obtuse she is to that. Yes, that's a Shawshank reference. Nice. But,
nice.
Oh, dude, and the crazy part is, let me put my phone down here. Hold on. The crazy part is, I've got my fingers pointing together. I'm like, listen here. The crazy part is, I know people who are like this, who are like, oh yeah, you remember this part when this happens, and oh my God, and she's getting into it the way that fans do. But it's so scary. There's something different about, like, I've geeked out with friends before over movies. Like, oh yeah, you remember this part? You remember that? Blah, blah. But this whole other level she has is just like, it's almost it's bizarre to watch.
I used to do that, but I was 12, right? Like, I don't do that anymore.
Well, and how she dances, misery's alive, alive. And it's like
misery's real. Like, it's insane.
She's on the spectrum for sure, right?
Oh, 100%.
100%. Yeah.
100%.
Well, in the way that she goes on, she's like, She's like, will she wake up and love Ian with that perfect special love? Have to wait. Will she go back to Ian or will she go back to Hawthorne? Have to wait. Like, I love. Oh, he's so good there, man. But
He's so good.
I'm going to stop and put on my Liberace records.
Do you like Liberace, Paul?
I do feel like Paul's a Liberace fan. I'm not going to lie. I feel like that is kind of genuine.
Whenever he played Radio City, who do you think was right there in the front row?
Yeah, right. And he asked Andy to dinner. Hey, would you have? Yeah, and I love James Caan here. Hey,
he's so good.
Would you mind having dinner with me tonight to celebrate Misery's return? And it's like, I love like the way he pronounces stuff in this too, like not to backtrack, but there's that part where he's like, when I asked for a snack, I was thinking something like cheese and crackers, like I love the way he pronounces all this shit.
Sure. When he asks her for dinner, I can hear a dam just bursting. Like, you know what I mean? It is like a fucking flood, dude. Like, how is that room not filled with,
Oh yeah,
it's crazy.
But yeah, so he asked her out to dinner, to celebrate Misery's return. I couldn't have done it without you. Just, oh my God. Again, you want to like her, how unbelievably special she feels by this, but in the context of it, it's just so fucking wrong. Like, you want to be happy for her in a sick, fucked up way.
It's like sad.
Like it's fucking so, like, it's weird because like I said, I went to this convention today and I met all these people and blah, 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 and yada, yada. And you saw fans doing this and gushing. And it's like, I was very happy for those people. Some of those people are like, we saw people in wheelchairs and people who like, walking around on crutches who were just dedicated to go and meet these people. And it's like, that's fucking cool. And I'm so happy for you in that moment that you got to meet that person that you wanted to meet. And in the context of it, I was like, this is awesome, man. I really enjoyed this. But like seeing it in this context, I'm like, I hope hope your eyes rot out, you dumb bitch. Like, I just like, as I'm watching, I'm like, you awful, terrible shit bird of a person.
By the way, John Travolta just did an unofficial remake of this movie called The Fanatic, directed by Fred Durst.
Yeah.
Apparently it's garbage.
Are you kidding me? I'm going to watch this movie tomorrow.
It's not an actual remake, but like the premise of it is
the
like
same idea.
Yeah, rabid fan stalks his favorite action hero and destroys the star's life.
Dad, oh my
Apparently
God.
It's garbage.
Of course it is. It's starring John Travolta and it's directed by Fred Durst. No offense, John Travolta.
Or Fred Durst.
Like, no, Fred Durst, like, offense. Like, and I listen to Limp Bizkit, don't get me wrong. I grew up in that time, okay?
Oh, boy. Jess, let me know how it is.
Can we podcast about this movie, like, as a follow-up to Misery, like, one day? Devin Saw was in it. Oh, my God, I am sold on this shit.
Dude, when and if we launch, like, a Patreon to do bonus shit, that's gotta be it, dude. Like,
this is going to be your first bonus podcast. It got an 18% on Rotten Tomatoes. Do you want to know how much money it made in the box office?
Ooh, how much?
$3,000.
Oh, God.
And you know what? Just this past week, John Travolta was actually confused as to why he won't be nominated for Oscars. That's a genuine thing. That's a genuine comment.
It's crazy because when I saw the first picture of him, I was like, you know what? Yeah. I mean, that is kind of like, it's such a departure that I was kind of like, man, maybe, like, look at Robert Pattinson right now. Robert Pattinson got so much shit for Twilight, and now he's doing Lighthouse.
The renaissance of him right now. I'm obsessed with him.
Just recently watched Good Time, dude. That movie's
so
awesome.
So good, right? Yeah. I told Matt Anderson to watch that movie, and then they podcasted about it, and he didn't give me any credit, that motherfucker.
Stole the credit.
I was so mad.
Somebody sounds like they're harboring some Annie Wilkes grudges over here. But yeah, so after all this shit happens, we get this quick scene with Buster. He's reading all the books. Virginia thinks he's having an affair. I'm flattered you think I have that much energy. It's a cute scene.
I love them.
I love it. We cut to them having dinner. God, Annie, I've got to say, Annie looks beautiful here. She looks absolutely gorgeous. There's something that, I mean, again, she looks like a pilgrim about to have, the first Thanksgiving with the Native Americans, but it's like, what the fuck?
She looks less polished than she did in Titanic.
Right. Well, they're having this whole they're having this whole dinner. I love that. I've never had meatloaf this good. Oh, the trick is I put some Spam in with the ground beef. Like, oh,
and at this point,
God.
I'm like literally vomiting, and I'm like, this is the worst meal I've ever heard of in my life.
Is this cat food?
Like, delicious. Oh, meatloaf. Yeah, I put some Spam in it. I'm like, I've never other than if they were like drinking milk. Like I can't think of anything more disgusting. Like what I would rather eat cat food with Charlie Kelly and Danny DeVito before I sat down and ate this fucking Spam loaf that she's giving him. But Paul, he slips her the Mickey, for lack of a better term, as she gets up to go get some candles. And dude, the defeat when she knocks that wine over.
Holy shit. He looks at it for so fucking long,
that
dude.
That is such good acting from James Caan. It is incredible because you can see in his face, like, the devastation of that moment. It's so well done.
Right. It's like at that point, I probably would have just like grabbed the wine bottle and tried to crush her head in. I'm like, fuck it, I'm done.
Myself, honestly. No offense.
I would have just through the sheer force of will. I don't care if they're broken. Would have fucking stood on my legs and just gotten the fuck out of there, dude. Like, I don't care how much it hurts.
with his mental energy alone, I feel like he could just do like a scanners thing, and her head starts shaking and just explodes.
Yeah.
Like, But here we get a little bit of a montage. I love this. I can't remember what the music is. Some kind of classical music that plays over it. But
it's Liberace, yeah.
Is it? Oh, okay,
Liberace.
Cool. This whole
fucking
montage of
Get it? It's Liberace. Get it?
Anyways, no, I'm just kidding. Dude, if you put a gun to my head, I couldn't sing you one Liberace song. All I know is he's just a fabulous dresser. That's all I fucking know. I don't know anything about his music.
I just know that's the only thing that makes sense is for it to be Liberace.
I know that Michael Douglas played him in a film. That's about it.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Look at that.
But we kind of get this montage, the days and the weeks. How long do you guys think he's here? Months?
It's got to be
3
months.
months.
It's got to be months.
It's got to be to be completely healed to write an entire novel.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's like 28, 30 something chapters by the time he's done with it.
It's a full novel. I mean, that takes time. Even if you're writing shit, it still takes time.
And I love that Buster never stops looking for him either.
I love that Buster just keeps reading those misery novels. Yeah. Oh, man. What a guy.
And if it's enough time, he's just chugging through these things, It's like, it's got to be, I mean, several
He reads 8 misery novels. That also takes time.
Some people, man, I can't burn through books. I'm a slow reader.
Me too.
I reread stuff. I want to make sure I'm ingesting. Like, I know people who are like, I read like 27 books this year. I'm like, no, it's like the difference between listening and hearing something. I'm like, no, you heard something. You didn't listen to it. Like, that kind of shit drives me crazy. Like, and to each their own, but I can't, like, I'm a slowish reader in that I like rereading stuff and making sure I've ingested this. Like, well, okay, let me make sure I've got this right.
Dude, I bought Dune last year and I'm still reading Dune.
During this montage, we see Paul that's snowing. It's not snowing. He's lifting the typewriter to get his strength back. That's awesome. Again,
I love that.
He's so resourceful. He's like, what do I have? What can I use? And he's using it to rehabilitate himself. And we get this great scene with Annie having the blues. Dude, I love this scene.
Yeah.
It's so good. She comes in, here's your pills. Annie, what's wrong? I think it's the rain. It gives me the blues, blah, blah. And this, I mean, she goes on, you're beautiful, brilliant, famous man of the world. And I'm not a movie star type. I love you. I know you don't love me. You don't have to say it. You'll never know the fear of losing someone like you if you're someone like me. Dude, it breaks my heart.
Yeah. Seriously, it's amazing. It is such great dialogue and so well acted.
Right. And it's so it's just so fucking great. She says the book's almost finished. Your legs are almost healed. Pretty soon you're going to want to go home. Why would I want to go home? She's like, I know you want to. She's like, right. I think this is like what you guys were saying about him being like kind of cocky and kind of overconfident, is that I think he's taking her for a little too stupid. And he's like, no, I love it here. And she's like, dude, Come
No, you
on.
don't.
Like, right.
I like that she knows that though. Like she's smart enough to know that he truly doesn't love being here. Like, you know what I mean?
And like her dark moments though. You know what I mean? It's she's very bipolar. Her character is very bipolar. Like there's like there's such high highs and such low lows. And it's like when she's in those high moments where he's like, have dinner with me. It's like almost like she can like forgive the fact of like what she knows is the truth. And then she comes into press like this and she's like, no, I know it's not real. It's that self-awareness for a character that's so crazy, like so actually like crazy is interesting. She's such a well-developed character. There's so much to her.
Annie reveals she's got the gun. She might put bullets in it and says she needs to leave. Sorry, my voice cracked like a 13-year-old there. I have said multiple times in this podcast, I fucking hate Dutch angles on shit. I really do. I love the Dutch angle of her leaving the house. And it's just like that slight catty corner on her in the rain. I fucking love it. It's great. Paul takes this opportunity to escape and retrieves the knife from the kitchen. This is now is the knifing time. Now is the time you get the fucking knife. Along the way, he comes across the scrapbook of Annie's murder spree and her nickname, the Dragon Lady. Dude, this whole shit, like, and I'm a sucker for like news articles and stuff like that. So I'll pause it and read. Well, and it's so funny because it's like, hey, this little boy died March 2nd, blah, blah, blah. And then they just reprint the same text like 2 paragraphs over because I guess when they're making these, they're not expecting people to pause and like read this shit.
Especially back in 1990. Like now they probably are prepared for it, but.
Right. Exactly.
You have to pause in your VHS.
Oh, fuck's sake.
Now, do we ever get an actual like kill count? How many? I guess it's not super important, but do you guys know off the top of your head?
Right? Isn't it?
There's 5 kids, I think.
Yeah.
I think 5 was the number, but that might be from the book too. Like I could be.
Well, and she definitely kills her dad I think in the novel and the movie. We see that
5 is just the kid number, like the number of kids we think she killed. I don't know if her total kill count is 5.
Colin, just quickly, we did go past the quick little scene of Buster reading Misery's trial, and he's like, "There is a justice higher than that of man. I will be judged by him." Like that's gonna come into play.
Right, absolutely. Thank you. Good catch. So yeah, basically he starts reading about all her fucking crazy ass, memory lane book bullshit. And, dude, the absolutely hilarious scene of him lying in bed, the camera panning out, and he just slink, like pulls the knife up real quick, like he's practicing. Unbelievably, like, and we need it. There hasn't really been a whole lot of comedic shit this whole time. And that scene of him practicing fucking whipping the knife out is so, like, I remember that clear as day from the first time I ever saw this. Because I was like, that would be really cool if you kept a knife in like a sling to protect yourself. Like, I could do that. I just thought that was really fucking cool. But basically, yeah, so he sees Annie come back that night, terrifying. Her just standing in front of the door for a few seconds and walking off.
Yeah.
Oof. That just scares me.
I don't know what's scarier, her standing in front of the door or the fact that she goes and watches Love Connection. I don't know which one's scarier.
No idea
Love Connection is a classic. Come on.
I never was. I think that was a little bit before my time.
I used to watch the reruns. I love trashy reality TV. It is my favorite.
My God. I'm begging God to give me cancer when I watch shit like that. I'm like, I fucking can't. Just kill me now.
Dude, whenever like someone's like, oh yeah, Love Island was good tonight, I'm just like, what? What language is this?
I watch so much Love Island, I can't even. You don't even know.
I'm just gonna hang on.
It's
right
so
now.
good.
Yeah,
It's so trashy. It makes you be like, my life is great.
Colin, can we dish
I'm
this
better
guest?
than these people.
Let's dish the guest. Let's bail out here. Love you, Jess.
Well,
Just kidding. I swear.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I guess when we really get down to it, we're here, aren't we? We're here. Like, I mean, in the movie. We're where this movie has been leading to ever since we started it. We're here. She comes in. She obviously finds out that he's been out. She drugs him. He wakes up and he's strapped to the bed like fucking Frankenstein's monster. And you're like, and I love, she's like, I know you've been out, Paul. And he's like, what? No, I haven't. Like, he's so like giddy. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? What the fuckery of when he reaches for the knife and she pulls it out and you're like, it's over. it's fucking over. Like it's like feeling the like reaching for the catch and feeling the football just slide through your fingertips. And it's like, oh, it's right there. Like, holy shit. And apparently, from what I was reading about with this whole hobbling scene, a lot of people actually turned it down because I think it was a lot more gruesome in the original script. I think because I mean,
it was an axe.
Jess, tell us about. Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, Jess, I just ruined it for you.
God damn it, Zoe. No, now is it particularly brutal in the novel? Like, does it go into a lot of detail?
Yeah, as Stephen King does, and in the novel, it's different. She doesn't like break his, ankles. Essentially, she cuts off one of his feet with an axe, and then cauterizes the wounds. Like she sets it on fire, to cauterize it. It's like with a blowtorch. Like it's really fucked up shit.
God damn.
So it is very, very different. Not very different. It's like the same idea. She wants to make it so he is unable to walk. It's just,
she gets a point across.
And I get it. Like I think in a movie there's something about like cutting off a limb that's almost like, I almost want to say like not comedic, but I don't know if it has the same actual effect of like this, like the smashing of the bone. Like to me, like that's almost like harder to watch.
I think
like I almost feel like it would be easier to watch him cut a leg off or to watch her cut like a foot off, to be honest.
I mean, since
I think it was a good choice.
Right, exactly. Since 1990, maybe you've seen dismemberments. Like I mean, you've seen. But at this time, Friday 13th and fucking Nightmare on Elm Street and shit, that shit was booming. Like, you've seen that kind of like blood and gore already. I mean, obviously
it's almost like gore for the sake of gore as opposed to like this.
Compound fractures.
This is something different.
Yeah.
Like this is something different, just like darker in the way
because this is relatable.
Done.
I mean, like you don't. I mean, like, how often do you fucking slice off, a piece of your fucking foot? Whereas this is like you can imagine, somewhere, sometime, I don't know, getting hit with a hammer accidentally or some shit. I mean, if you're doing some housework or whatever, this can happen. Like, this is a real situation.
And it's logical in the way that we've seen Annie. She works on a farm. She's got this pig or whatever. And she's out in the middle of the wilderness. She probably has a sledgehammer.
If all of a sudden,
at this point in the movie, she takes out an axe and she cuts off his foot and then has a blowtorch to cauterize it, I think people would be like, "Oh, I'm suspending my disbelief a lot here." Like, I feel like, again, I would talk shit about it. Personally. And in the book, it's fine and it makes sense. And, you've read an entire novel surrounding it. But like in the movie, I feel like that this scene still is so fucked up to me. I close my eyes. I can't watch it.
For sure. And the practical effect.
It.
Yeah.
I hate it.
You're out there, Jess?
I don't like to watch people get beat up and
it's pretty
serious injuries and stuff. It's just oh my God. It makes me so uncomfortable. If
it makes you feel any better, it's made out of jelly and wire.
I close my eyes so I don't even know.
Well, and I think exactly like what you said, the relatability of it. I mean, you've broken a toe, you broke an ankle. I dislocated a knee. We can relate to that. I can't relate to losing a limb. I've never had it happen. So it's like, holy shit to again, it's exactly what you said. In this podcast alone, we all have a broken, some kind of, or like you ever see the kickboxing fails where somebody goes to kick and they snap and you see their leg just bend. Like that makes me fucking vomit. I fucking can't. Jesus Christ.
Final Destination when she's fucking dismounting in the gymnasium and she lands weird and fucking bones go, ugh. Yeah.
I've seen this stuff with animals and things and there's nothing like a broken bone it's compound fractures when you can see that that stuff is you'll never unsee it. Everyone I've ever seen in my career I can still remember to this day.
It's fucked up.
You'll never forget it. It's dark shit.
So you sleep soundly at night, right?
Oh, totally. So well, like a baby.
Well, so yeah, I mean, here we are. She fucking hobbles his ass. And I like, what she talks about that it was a process they used in the mines, so they wanted people to keep working. It definitely made me think about Django, where they fucking talk about crushing his head in, and he'll just, they'll knock you silly, and then once they're done, they'll knock you in the head and throw you in a hole, and that'll be the end of you. I was like, holy shit.
Negative encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. And the pan in on her face. I love you. Like, oh, Jesus. I mean, and Khan is great here. I can only,
so good.
I mean, the amount
agony.
of pain that yes, like I can relate to that again, laying on the walk-in cooler at work with my fucking knee wrapped up like a pretzel. I was literally like,
Dude,
just fucking screaming.
That's how I scream when I stub my toe at the edge of the couch. That's me, dude. Sure.
So, I mean, and now because we need to shift the focus off Paul, we've had an extreme event. We're going back to Buster. It's great. It's really, really good timing. I love it. I love the flow of this. We're
so important to do it this way.
We get Buster, which Annie Wilkes finally pops up on his radar. He sees her acting like a fucking nut, and he's kind of like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I haven't checked her out yet. Maybe we can see what's going on with Annie Wilkes. Excuse me. And
fucking hell, Colin, I gotta cut that.
Right. Well, and the whole thing of he sees Annie Wilkes, he gets the piece of paper about being judged by a higher authority, and he goes to see the shopkeeper, and he's talking to he goes to the library, and he sees the
library.
Right, and he sees the quote, there is a justice higher than that of man, and I will be judged by him. And it's, I mean, same thing as he's got fucking, the same thing as, he pulled from the book. He's seeing in Annie's, he's seeing at Annie's trial, and it's like, oh shit, like all the puzzle pieces are kind of falling together now.
Such a good detail. It's
just
so
a really
good.
A really great scene of Annie being like, hey, pumpkin, and James Caan just shoots her the bird. So crystal clear in my memory. She's like, oh, such a kidder. Like, oh, dude, if I could spit venom into your eyes, you fucking bitch. Like, oh, I fucking love that.
It's perfect.
And, Buster, he goes to the store. He's asking about, Annie Wilkes, does she have any charges? What kind of paper she get? Newspaper? No, the typing kind. No, nothing odd about that at all. And he just turns around and walks out. And has Miss Wilkes done something? Not one bit. Like, I love it because he knows, but he's just playing it so fucking cool. Nope, nothing wrong here. See you later. And he just turns and goes straight to her house. This just feels great. This whole thing of cat and mouse, because what's crazy is that Buster finally locks in. I mean, literally the day after she smashes his ankles again. I think had she not smashed his ankles and Buster comes in, I think Khan makes a break for it. I think he jumps and does something because he's physically healed now. But because she crushes those ankles again, it's like, well, no. I'm back to square one, versus at least if he were, he's not in fighting shape, but I mean, he stands more of a chance. You know what I mean? Like if Buster had done this shit just like a day earlier, like he probably would have, been able to fight her off before she shot him up with her little roofie colada. But poor Buster, man. I feel so fucking bad for him. And then you beautiful fool, just get out of there, dude. And like the whole cat and mouse of this scene. Zoheb, talk to me about this scene.
Man, this is fucking tense. Are you talking about like how he's entered the house already? Is this where we are?
Right. Yeah. Basically.
Yeah, man. So. This doesn't work unless you've built up the goodwill of Buster already. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, this doesn't work.
Yes.
Unless you make Buster the most likable person on the fucking planet. And man, like when he opens the door to the basement, like he hears because this is Annie's pretty much like kind of like already convinced him. Like he's already kind of like, He's fallen under the charm of Annie, she's put the spell on him, the nice spell that she's put on us like in the first hour of the movie. And he bought it. Like he's like, oh, okay, everything's good, I guess. One thing I really, really like is the look. Like, when they kind of like when Annie goes back into the kitchen and then like both of them look at the same time at each other. Holy fuck, is that good? That just like speaks so much about like the distrust between both parties. And then it's like it's not until like you know, he leaves and then what happens? So like Paul is in the basement and he gets out, right? Is that what's going on? No, he hits his wheelchair against the
yeah, he makes a noise.
Yeah,
he's whacking the grill down there.
Right?
Yeah, he knocks something over. I don't know. It's not important. But anyway, it's enough to get fucking Buster's attention and just barges right back in. By the way, no warrant needed because there's cause. Just nice little detail.
Lawyer fact.
Yeah, lawyer fact. Yeah. I actually don't know if that applies here in New South Wales, but yeah.
It does in 1990 Colorado, though.
There we go.
Right.
There we go.
Well, and I love, like you said, I think he buys the surface level. Oh, hi. Yeah, I don't get a lot of visitors out here, but deep down, he's still not, like. Yeah,
he's very hesitant suspicious. To buy it 100%. Like, he's still cautious. Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, because we see her acting like a fucking nut in public, you know, yelling at people, which is not anything crazy. You know, I've fucking shot people a bird in traffic. Fuck you, you know, blah blah blah. But once he starts reading about the murders, and he's like, all right, she is, you know, like I can tell the difference between shit and sugar, and there's some lot of sugar on top of this shit. And I love that, like you said, the kind of back and forth of them checking in on each other as they're backing through the door, and he checks the whole house. What I love is that as soon as she's gone, he's just like, I'm going upstairs. By and just takes off by himself because he doesn't want her around him. Right. Or I'm sorry, he doesn't want her. Yeah, he doesn't want her around while he's looking, so she can move shit or whatever. Like there is a surface level of trust, but like you said, that deep distrust is fucking great.
For sure. The script reads, hearing Paul's muffled call for help, he tracks the sound to the cellar door. As Paul continues to call out, Buster looks around, sees no one, and opens the cellar door. The shaft of light from the open door pours down on Paul, who is still lying on the floor. Mr. Sheldon? But before Paul can answer, there's a sound of the loud boom of the shotgun. Damn.
It is like painful, and like, to be honest, when I was like rewatching this movie, I hadn't watched it in a long time. It's like, I know the plot, I know everything that happens. And when Buster gets shot, I was still like, no, this can't be true. Like,
right.
He's so likable and he's such a good character. And the idea that he's dead, like just like that, is so very sad.
Right. Well, and her justification for all of this, I mean, she literally said, she goes, it was going to happen sooner or later. And she's right. Yes. Eventually somebody was going to come here and find you. Mm-hmm. And she's like, now is like, I think this whole time, this is where it starts to kind of sink in that like, she doesn't want to sit here and keep Paul here, you know, like a ball and chain, you know, tethered here, always writing these novels. Like this is a one-time thing. Once this is done, I mean, where is her life going to go from here? It's not going to go uphill. She's not marrying Paul. Like she knows, she's like, it was bound to happen eventually later. It's a sign. And you're like, holy shit. Like she's resigned herself to this death and resigned him to death.
Yeah, they have to die together.
Right. Well, and I love the fact that he hits her and she comes down the stairs with the syringe and the rifle, the handgun. And he's just like, she's got
the revolver, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And she says, I love you. He says, I love you too. And you're right. You know, it's time. We were meant to be together, but we got to finish the novel. And I love it because the book isn't done. And she might be stupid. She might be ignorant. She might see through a lot of his bullshit, but he knows he's got that one string he can pluck of misery. Just struck that one string and it's like ringing a dinner bell. Like she'll come every single time.
Like you're playing on fucking, until you stop it, then yeah.
Right. Well, and I love, it's almost like kind of spooky. She's like, but others will come. Like, that's what the fuck? like there's something about that line I just loved. It's like, it's so ominous, you know, that other people will come. And God, the bitch move of just parking his wheelchair at the top of the steps and being like, all right, come and get it. Like, oh, God damn, dude. Like, that's brutal. But I mean, we're pretty much wrapping down here. We're at the final 10 minutes. Paul gets to cracking on the script. You know, just how how she comes back in the room. She's like, oh, Paul, I'm dying. Does she end up with Ian or Winthorpe? Like, she's just so nonchalant about the fact that she broke both his ankles and murdered somebody in the last 24 hours. Like, there's no, like, it's time, isn't it? Her seriousness of it is just gone. Like, she's so sucked right back up into it. It's fucking terrifying.
So crazy.
He says, hey, obviously I need some things. You need a cigarette because you used to smoke, but you quit, except when you finish a book. Good and you God. Just have one. And the match is to light it, and you need one glass of champagne.
Dom Perignon, too. We're fancy here.
Right. I think doesn't she like butcher the pronunciation of that? She's like, Don Perignon. I can't remember how she says it.
She pronounces it wrong, and he repeats it in the same way that she pronounced it. And I love that.
It's like Family Guy when they order a glass of Chubless.
Oh my God.
I love it.
But yeah, Paul, he finishes it up. He's calling for her. He says, hey, it's almost done. I'm almost done. He says, I need my cigarette. I need my, I need all this shit. And the amazing thing of validating her right before everything goes to shit, where he's like, I got you this, I got you that. How is everything? Oh, it's perfect. But except for one thing, I need 2 glasses. And it's like, oh, just playing that harp, dude. Just the music that she cannot deny.
Good.
Like, this
she should be smarter, but she's not.
This whole scene is just so because it's the revenge thing of, you burned my book, I'll burn your fucking book now. Mm-hmm. Like, fuck you, dude. And that's so great. And obviously, he stole the lighter fluid from the basement. We forgot to mention it, but who gives a fuck if you haven't seen this movie and you've made it to this point? I don't know what to tell you. But just, oh my God, when she comes back in and she sees him, the destruction, remember for all those years, nobody knew who Misery's real father was or if they'd ever be reunited. It's all right here. Does she finally marry Ian or will it be Winthorne? It's all right here. And just lights the fucking match and torches that shit. Oh my God.
Misery!
What I would have really loved.
So good when he did it. Ugh.
Oh, I love if the last page was just like all work and no play makes Jack. Just like if it was just this nonsense on the page. But he lights the fucking book on fire. She falls right for it. Again, playing that harp. And what does he do? Dude, he slams her in the head with a 50-pound typewriter.
Keyboard.
And she fucking... Oh, fuck you.
Right.
For a second. But dude, I mean, nothing. It does nothing to her. And I love, the way they get into this brawl. He fucking, he claws her eyes out, basically, like rams his thumbs in her eyes.
Yeah, there's a lot of head trauma here.
Dude, mm-hmm. I mean, her fucking shooting almost like, holy shit. Like, you kind of forget, she's got a loaded gun on her. But just the imagery of her with all the blood around her mouth and her screaming, it's just like, oh man, it's so unsettling.
I don't want to go past the fact that she also starts to, she breaks her values here, right? She says, I'm going to kill you, you lying cocksucker. Like, she's she's no longer that restrained Annie Wilkes anymore. It's kind of like this fucking uncaged beast. I love that.
Oh, but dude, the amazing when he gets on top of her and they kind of start fighting. He's like, "You what? You let it into your chunk, you twisted sick fuck!" Like,
love
dude, that is so good, dude. But I mean, obviously, we all know how this ends. This brawl goes back and forth. I love him using the leg. The leg that has hindered him for so long is the thing that trips her up and slams her head onto the typewriter. It's just, I love the symbology. No, I'm just kidding. The symbolism there of him using the broken leg to not only trip her, but her head smashing into the typewriter is what fucking does it in. And right when you think it's over with too, I love the last gasp of the horror shit of her, jumping right back on. I mean, God, she just won't stop. It's like fucking dealing with a Terminator, man. And, but I mean, he gets the fucking, I don't even know. What is this? Like a doorstop? Like a little piglet doorstop?
Yeah,
I don't know what the hell you call
it.
this.
The doorstop.
Right, I was like, is this an award or like what? Like what happened? But dude just crushes her fucking frontal lobe in with that thing. It's great. And she collapses and bitch is fucking dead.
Pretty poetic that she's killed by Misery, right?
I love it.
Right.
I like the typewriter
so good.
and then Misery the Pig. I am on board with the symbolism.
For sure.
Now, the ending in the book, how does this end? Is this the same thing? Like, doesn't she like get away, or they can't find her body? Like, I can't remember the ending.
They can't find her body or something. I just know that Paul continues to, like, in his mind, even though he's like, I know she's dead, he like keeps seeing her everywhere, which we kind of see that moment in the movie as well. But in the book, it's almost like more like he almost can't like move on completely because he just sees Annie everywhere.
Oh, so it's like it's like PTSD. Like he's like tortured by it. Oh my God.
Kind of like a drug addiction, right? I mean, like if that's if that's what your metaphor is for the movie, you don't immediately get over drug addiction. You kind of have to deal with the aftermath of that.
Correct.
Right. Cut to 18 months later, Paul's having lunch with his agent. They're talking about The Higher Education of J. Philip Stone is the book. I don't know what the fuck. I thought that would be, I figured it would be something like Cockadoodie or something kind of funny, like relating to his situation with her. But I was like, all right, I don't know what that is. She says she's getting reviews, from Times and, stuff that it's going to be rave, and I love even as she's talking, like it just, everything stops because he sees that woman coming towards him. I'm your number one fan. Like, oh my fucking God. Like the fact that like, I wonder how many times Stephen King has heard this and he's like,
must be constant.
Don't say this. Right. Well, and just how casual like Paul is about it. I just want to tell you I'm your number one fan. And he's like, that's very sweet of you. And like, dude, how do you not like, get the fuck away from me? Like, how do you not just like flip out on this bitch? But I mean, that's Misery, man. That's it.
Boom.
Boom. Guys, it's been a lot of fun. I'm getting out of here. See ya. No, I'm just kidding. Just walk out. You want to do comments and then closing thoughts, or closing thoughts and then comments? How you want to do this?
Yeah, we've only got 2 comments. I've already got them up. Jose.
Go for it.
Our boy Jose. He actually says no way. So it's like no way, Jose.
No way, Jose.
It's like no way. This is my favorite Stephen King novel, one of my favorite movies, and I got to see the Broadway production a few years ago with Bruce Willis and Laurie Metcalf. Very excited for this one.
Oh my gosh, I'd love to. That's great.
Wait, have you seen it? Is that a thing?
No, I'd love to though.
Yeah. I mean, Bruce Willis, like if he tries, right?
Right. And of course, the always prevalent, just as much as Jose Rivera, Patrick Harrington, the best person to wield a sledgehammer other than Triple H.
Oh, God. I knew he'd work a fucking wrestling reference in there.
Right. So yeah, that's pretty much all the comments we got. I'll start with final thoughts. I love this movie. I think it's timeless. I think it's great because there's not a whole lot of like, I don't know. I just don't ever see this movie being, there's not a dependent on, there's really not like a dependence on modern technology. It's, books are always it's not like, oh, this guy's a blogger and I've hacked into his house, or this guy wrote a bad Yelp review and I'm going to murder him. It's timeless. And I think that's the best thing about it. And it's so incredibly relevant today with this kind of, the toxic fan culture that we have going on. And, I don't know. I really can't think of anything else to say. I fucking love this movie. I think I've said about everything that I've got to say. I'm always down to cover some Stephen King. I'm glad that we've gotten this. What else Stephen King have we covered? Is this our first like full-fledged King movie?
No, it can't be. Surely.
I don't know. I can't do it.
I don't want to commit like some kind of like treason here, but In the Mouth of Madness isn't King, right?
No, Sutter Kane is supposed to be Stephen King, basically. But no, I think this might be, unless I'm crazy, somebody send me an email, but I'm pretty sure this is the first King that we've covered.
It can't be. Surely not, right? I mean, that's sucking. I'm actually like tripping out right now. I'm fully tripping out right now. Yeah, that's.
I don't know, man. And it's. I'm glad that all of us got on the same boat, us and LSG and Rogues Gallery. I think it's so cool that all of us were covering this at the same time. I'm very happy to have Jess on. We popped a Stephen King cherry. We got, Jess, this is not your first guest appearance. You were on the pop list, right?
I was on the pop list, and I did I talked about Harry Potter on. Now I'm going to have to edit this because I can't think of the fucking name of the podcast because it's after midnight and I've been drinking wine.
Those are two very good reasons. Like,
but yes, so technically my third guest appearance, but the most important, clearly.
Wow. Shots fired against those other two podcasts. Sorry, Floyd.
Yeah, until they ask me to be back on, then I'll tell them they're the most important. Like, I got to stay with the times.
Right. Well, I mean, and thanks again for coming on. You're always welcome to be on. Especially if you want to chat some Stephen King, just pick a time and place.
I'm always on board to talk Stephen King. It is one of my favorite topics, clearly.
All right, one of you fuckers go next.
All right, Jess, you want to give us your final thoughts and I'll close it out.
Okay. Like I said, I think this is such a good movie. I think it really holds up. I think it stays true to the novel. And these are all things that I love, that I know Stephen King loves. So I really can't complain. I do have some interest in not seeing necessarily this movie remade or the John Travolta movie that I'm going to go watch tomorrow and get back to you guys on.
You're going to watch it.
I'm 100% going to watch this movie. Don't even worry about it.
Here lies Jessica 2019 after watching Fred and John Travolta's
I've seen so many good movies this year and then this terrible one. But I do like the idea of this, like the super fan and the obsession. And it's such an interesting concept. And like we've talked about, it's so prevalent now, especially in the age of social media, which is why it's such a great story to look on at this point in time. James Caan is great. Kathy Bates is great. I think everyone should watch this movie. If you haven't, you should maybe read the book, but it's real fucked up because cocaine. And thanks for having me on the podcast, guys. This was a good time.
Yes, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Seriously. We've been wanting to do this for a while, so really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And you offered up, I'm glad that one of us read the novel.
You're welcome, you slackers. I thought about rereading it before the podcast, and I'm like, I don't got time for that shit. Hopefully I remember it well enough.
Oh, wait, don't worry. Our listeners know we're fucking lazy. We're just like, oh, yeah, we're going to record a podcast. I'm going to do zero, research around it, but whatever. We'll see how we go. We'll see how it turns out.
See how it goes, yeah.
But no, Misery. Really love this movie. Really, really, it was great watching it again after all these years for the second time. I remember the first time I really, really dug it, but I think maybe I was just a bit too young to kind of get it, if that makes sense. Get all the little sort of intricacies of it and because you kind of have to understand psychology. You kind of have to understand how people feel and react to things. The way she's kind of manipulating him and the way he manipulates her, that whole aspect of it is something that you kind of really need to understand. And you don't really understand that kind of stuff until you're a bit older. So watching that dynamic this time around was super fascinating. Really love the way it's shot. Really love the tension. Rob Reiner's a goddamn genius. After this and Stand By Me, both of which are King adaptations. And guys, I know that it's The Body and not Stand By Me. Okay, that's the only thing that I know.
I'm so proud of you right now.
I know.
That warms my heart.
Can I get a goddamn fucking gold star, please?
Cheers. I'm going to finish my wine to this moment.
Hell yeah. But no, really great performances too. Kathy Bates, absolutely. But I think also someone who is underrated is James Caan in this movie, because this movie doesn't work with a James Caan-esque characteristic or personality. He's kind of he's got that cockiness, he's got that hardness about him. If you cast someone else that's a little soft, that you don't believe can go toe to toe with this monstrous being, then this movie kind of falls apart. So I think they really did a good job with the casting here. That's about it. Love this movie.
Hell yeah, fantastic. Guys, thanks for so much, staying late, listening in, tackling what is apparently our first Stephen King film.
It is, I confirmed it.
Obviously, hell yeah.
Wow.
A year, that's
excited.
crazy. That's crazy. You would have thought by now, you know.
I know, fuck.
Very excited to be covering Stephen King for the first time. And a great movie to cover as well. I'm glad we didn't go for something like It or The Shining or something. We went for, I think, a middle of the road, still an exceptionally good movie, maybe even a little underrated. I think Misery should be up a lot higher on
I think
list.
this is I think this is like up there with like, I mean, I know probably not as high as Shawshank, but maybe like one rung under.
No, like Shawshank is the greatest of the great.
Yeah.
Like, you can really mess
That's
with
just,
that.
I mean, it's perfection. Guys, thanks so much for listening. We always appreciate you staying late and listening all the way through. If you want to check us out again, we're on Facebook at Midnight Double Feature. We have the group called The After Party connected with that. We're on Instagram at Midnight Double Feature. We're on Twitter at MDF Pod. You can also shoot us an email, midnightdoublefeature@gmail.com. And please stop by, rate and review us on iTunes. Jess, thanks so much for coming on. It was really a lot of fun. You're all, like I said, anybody from LSG, always more than welcome to come on this podcast.
Thank you for having me. This is a really good time. This is a great, like, come out of retirement podcast. I'm feeling real good now.
Right, yeah. We got you nice and warmed up. You're going to go in there and crush some Hawkins Report Season 3. Guys, thanks so much for listening. Jess, thanks again for coming on, and we will catch you guys next time.